Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Normally, I would read the canned disclaimer associated with the recording of the meeting, so since I forgot to bring it with me, I'll paraphrase it. Essentially, the HSV POA Property Owners Association is the official recorder of this meeting, and any recordings, transcriptions, or any other accounts of this game are not the official record of the village. This information, this recorded result can be viewed on explorethevillage.com and the village YouTube page. So I think I hit most of the high points on that. So next item was review and approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Tom, thank you for very thorough minutes. Trying to remember what the one item was I had. I had one question on one item that's there, and I don't remember what it was. Thank you. You can tell I did not have my act together this morning. If I can find it.
I made it big, so it's hard to find anything.
That's right. It's a minor item, but I can't remember what it was. Oh, it was the fitness center item. I don't know, it says state allowance to reduce lifeguard coverage. I don't think that was a state allowance thing. I think that was just a decision that we made based on our legal recommendation.
Well, what it was is they got approval from the state to not have lifeguards.
Oh, okay. I missed that in the conversation. Okay, so I stand correct?
The health department.
The health department and the state or whatever.
Okay. So that was the only thing I had. Did anybody else have anything in minutes?
No.
Hearing none. Motion to approve the minutes as documented.
Motion to approve is documented.
Second.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. And we only had a couple of items on the agenda today. Review of the administration budgets. Wanted to go back in the marketing department for in the recreation budget. Karina, thank you for setting out the draft roll-up. I'd like to spend a few minutes kind of looking at that. And then the last item on the agenda would be kind of a discussion amongst ourselves about what our feedback is going to be to the board regarding the 22 budget. We may be able, if we're lucky, we may be able to get that taken care of today and avoid having our meeting on the 4th of October, but we'll see how that plays out. So, did I miss anything anywhere? If not, who's up first?
Well, I'm going to let Paul Sage speak to the marketing side. What we had brought up on Monday in regards to the big increase in the public relations advertising and publications.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. I'm handing this out here. This is the same format that we presented our ROI analysis back to the board back in January for 2021. And when you talk about advertising, you talk about this line item, I know we call it public relations advertising and publications. What it really is, in my world, it's called media. It is air and space. It is the impressions that we buy, and most impressions we buy now are digital media, whether they're paid search, display, Facebook, or some other kind of medium, video. And we have done this ROI analysis to show you that essentially the more that we spend, we get this greater return by getting audience, getting people to come to our website, people to sign up for discovery packages, and eventually, most importantly, become leads and eventually become building permits. And this analysis shows that with this media investment that we get a positive ROI. And of course, the first question to ask about any kind of marketing expense is, well, I'd get this anyway, wouldn't I? I don't have to market at all, and everybody knows about this place, and they're going to come here anyway. Well, to some degree, that's true. We give that in terms of, with a goal of 150 new rooftops. We have a target, we're on track to get 135 this year. So adding 15 more with a total goal of 150 new rooftops, we'll say that the first 50 would happen organically. We'd say if I weren't here and no marketing was spent, money was spent, you'd still get a third of those. And we can attribute the other 2/3 to some sort of effort that people have to know we're here and know to come here and know how to sign up to visit and come see us. We also look at the line item of the media or the advertising expense, and we also have an agency fee. We have to pay people to create the ads, we have to pay them to buy and place the ads, and we also have to pay for the website and a lot of the other, the photography, all the other creative elements. So taking 90% of our brand media, our media into brand and discovery packages, 90% of our fee, we get this figure of $423,000. And that is really our advertising spend. What we've calculated is both with 12-month, 5-year, and 10-year ROIs, we get a positive return on our investment by creating more leads and getting more revenue, and having more rooftops to create more assessments and revenue. And the historical data, if you look at where we've come from, both on this front of the page and the back of the page, shows you that our investment is very frugally and efficiently spent to create these impressions. We also have golf revenue, which has just blown through the roof with very little media investment spent in golf, and we're proposing spending another, of that number you see, 30,000 of it is golf, to generate revenue for golf packages. I'm glad to provide any backup or detail that you need here.
Could you explain the chart on the back here?
Yeah, what this is this is our website visitors. This is how many people we drive to our website from outside of Hot Springs Village and outside of bot traffic to visit our website, and this is the average daily. And it clearly illustrates that when we advertise and advertise digitally, that we get this huge lift in traffic to our website. That huge lift in traffic to our website translates into, as we see, more leads during the heavy advertising period, and the leads go to the realtors, and those things eventually become sales. So while that is not in and of itself, you can't tie revenue to that, it shows you the effect on the target audience of what we're doing with this spend. It's actually changing their online behavior. We are now in a paid search only period. Actually after the middle of August, our budget was such that we couldn't sustain the advertising and paid search, the full press, past mid-August. So you're going to see that number go way down for September.
So Paul, do you have anything, I understand the chart, do you have any data that talks about how many of those visitors either book stay and play packages or close on property? I mean, my old experience with sales was usually had like 50 suspects or 5 prospects for one deal, you know, kind of a number.
Well, the golf packages is really a retail sale. It's separate. It's in and of itself. They call the golf department, they book a package, typically within a couple of months of when they call. And so, and that's booked pretty, I think it's booked on the day of reservation or very close to it, so that's immediate revenue. On the conversion of those visitors, we do have the Discovery Package conversion data. Through August, we had 141 Discovery Packages and 17 conversions. I'm happy to provide, I didn't bring a lot of copies of this, but I can provide this to you. So the 17 conversions, now, are all of those from this year? Most of them are, but they could be holdovers from Discovery Packages that came in the prior year.
Sorry, looking through the data, apologies.
Yeah, well, some of it is repeated on the spreadsheet I gave you. I took the most important pieces and put that on the handout.
So Paul, so last year's, or this year's budget, 2021's budget, you were able to do basically what is on this sheet, correct?
Correct, and
So next year's budget, you're asking for $140,000 more.
well, 101,000 incrementally in media. I think there are some other areas of Discovery and things that may have gone up. But what we're asking, the reason we're asking for more specifically on this media, this advertising, is to go from a 4.5 month heavy period to adding at least 3 more months. We can build that out so that we cover March through October and maybe even into November, just depending on what the market rates are for the digital media we want to buy. We're also getting more and more efficient. We're looking at Ideal Living magazine traditionally was a big media spend, but we've measured that. We put a unique URL, we look at the leads that come out of that, and we're probably not going to spend anything on the magazine. We're going to spend some on their website, but a very small amount, like $3,900. And we're looking at just what is the most efficient for this 6-state audience, and we've tested California, and we know California is more expensive. So we go after these core 6 states, and we really have sort of a self-selecting audience. They search, and then we track them, we follow them with ads, and continue to stay in front of this target audience. One of the things I need to note is we do not pay a markup on media. The arrangement with sales agency and with any of our media is that we are not paying an agency commission on top of media. That traditionally, that was going on here. That goes on in a lot of places where suddenly your $1,000 ad is an $1,117 ad, and but we're not doing that. The agency is compensated strictly through an hourly rate that's in the retainer.
Well, I think what we're struggling with, Paul, we're still in a period of comparative austerity. You know, and so the thing that we're trying to wrap our head around is, what are we, bottom line, what are we going to get for another $140,000? I mean, I get more exposure, I get more opportunity for leads, things like that. But, you know, that the question becomes, what are we actually going to net from it? You know, and the other side of that equation is, if we don't spend $140,000 here, we can get another piece of equipment, we can hire another person somewhere. You know, there's variety of things that can be done with the money.
I understand.
And so we're really struggling with how do we turn, you know, how do we actually get do we have any kind of metrics that talk about the number of deals that we close, or, you know, the golf packages is good information. You know, that's certainly we've gotten a much better golf play in 21 than we had in 20. Of course, everybody was locked in their houses in 20, so it was kind of a weird year.
Right, although that golf packages, what you're looking at there are people who traveled from somewhere else. That's not if you're a golf resident. It's a stay and play. It's a very muddy and long funnel when you start talking about advertising to generate interest, to generate discovery packages, to generate leads, and eventually somebody buys a lot and builds a house on it. And that's often, as I know people in this room know, that can be a multi-year process. So this is based on the best evidence we have, based on the way we've done things, especially in the last year, that this will create more interest, more awareness, that become leads, that become visitors, that become purchasers. To create more demand for Hot Springs Village by creating more awareness and engagement with the brand.
So Paul, one other question. So with the money that you had, with the money that we had in 2021, you were able to target a specific window of
Correct.
time in the calendar year, based on additional searches and all that
Correct.
kind of stuff. And you're wanting to basically expand that out.
Correct.
So what data do we have saying that going earlier in the spring or later in the fall will achieve the same? Because, obviously you target the summer, which is when people
Yeah,
are
with
gonna
spring and
most
summer,
likely
right.
travel, and if they're gonna go wander around, that's more likely they're gonna go in those periods of time. I understand your rationale.
Well, we simply know from the website traffic that immediately it goes up when we advertise.
Yeah.
We waited to start April 1st. We certainly could have caught that pre-spring planning group had we gone in earlier. And then cutting it off August 15th, well, it's still hot outside. There's still plenty of time to visit here, and we haven't advertised in over a month except in paid search. So those were our limitations. We also, we have these 6 core states that we really drive the traffic from, and they correlate perfectly with what the Arkansas Department of Tourism shows as what they target. And we know that that's where people come from, and that's the most likely person to visit us is from one of those 6 states. We'll get some Californians here and there, but it's a much bigger bucket to try to fish out of.
What are the 6 states?
6 states are Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, Missouri, and Illinois. Now, I get the most questions about Missouri, but Missouri is one of the Department of Tourism states, and you're talking about St. Louis and Kansas City, and you're still getting, first of all, it's driving distance. Secondly, you're getting a lot of those urban people who are looking for ways to get out. Illinois is the one really outlier that we tend to get a lot of Chicagoans and people from Illinois that is not a Department of Tourism targeted state.
That was gonna be my question. Okay, so of the residents that we do have, what does that makeup look like?
When you look at the data on, and this
Where people
is
came from.
self-reported new member surveys, it's about 22% Arkansas, 22% Texas, and then very small single-digit percentages from everywhere else. Now, from Arkansas has a lot of noise in it, because you might have moved from Illinois to Bentonville and then on down here or something. And so clearly Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth, Houston, Austin, those markets are enormously important to us.
2020 and 21 were peculiar years because of COVID. And how much of your information here can be supported that it all happened because of marketing, but just because of the nature of the real estate and people just looking? So the question that really comes down to, out of your 150, do you have data to support that 2/3 of those will be as a result of marketing?
Only the historical data I put on, that's, if you look at 2015 to 2019, we had an average of 49.4 new rooftops
Yeah.
per year. It's really hard to test something like this and, have a control group and do it 2 ways at the same time. So that's where I'm coming from with the 50 versus 100. Who's to say? You could maybe get 90. without anything. But we're talking about, when we say without anything, we're talking about, other than making sure the website comes on when somebody turns on their computer, you're talking about nothing out there. And search would be simply organic search, which, good luck competing against those people who are buying paid search and buying the same terms. So the 50 to 150, 50 to 100 equals 150 split seemed reasonable to us.
And that's, to get those numbers, you're saying it would require the additional 100,000 and whatever else.
I think it would, I mean, we're talking about
Because we're-
jumping from 135 to 150,
Yeah.
you know, getting that extra 15. It may get us more. I hope it gets us more. And it's simply that we're seeing a lot of action, a lot of results, a lot of very low cost per thousand eyeballs kind of efficiency and behavior out there online from advertising like this. And more time spent in the year doing this heavy up advertising should get us more people.
I think I might have missed it, but the numbers across the top of this chart.
Yes, those are average daily visitors to the website
Yeah.
when we subtract Hot Springs Village and we subtract out the Washington DC Metro, because, General, you may know more about this. There's an Amazon center in Virginia or the Washington DC Metro that generates tens of thousands of bot traffic impressions. So we kill that. We really are trying, and we look at time spent on screen. And so it's a reasonable, close estimate of how many real people outside Hot Springs Village are visiting our website. Not, there's so much non-human traffic out there, we try to filter that out. Clearly, when we start running these ads, we get more people.
These are
If you look-
adjusted for the Hot Springs? or
Yes,
not?
we filter out Hot Springs
Okay.
Village, we filter out Washington DC Metro.
Yeah.
So that in this period, 5-month period, April to August, of which we had 4.5 months of heavy advertising, over 900 people a day were visiting explorethevillage.com.
And that's unique visitors, right? Is that?
No, it is not. We've looked at the whole unique visitor thing, and it's it's not a very stable metric. I would say unique visitors tends to track in the 80% or so. You know, it correlates to total visitors, but we were looking at unique visitors, and there's a lot of noise in there.
Gotcha.
Is there any metrics beyond, you have these average daily views, then there's going to be duplication or whatever because of unique visitors.
Right.
And then what's the next metric after that?
Well, we have things like
like
average
con-
time spent on the site. We have everything on what
Okay.
pages they went on. I mean, Google Analytics will take you as far down the rabbit hole as you want to go.
I guess it's more about how many of these are you converting to actually coming out here?
Well, it's a very small percentage when you look at the number of discovery packages, 141 discovery packages sold through August based on thousands, and, that 903 is per day. So we're a product, much like cars and airplanes and other things that are very heavily considered purchases, that we're only going to convert a very small percentage into actual purchase behavior or even shopping behavior. But we are getting out there in front of them, and we are getting good information in front of people. The integrity of our website has come up tremendously just by revising and revamping the website alone. We got a lot more traffic. That was end of June last year, June 2020. And that the agency fee paid for that.
Well, besides discovery packages, are there other options? Because I was thinking, one option is mail me a brochure, and one option would just be, leave your name and
Right.
email
Those are
address,
options,
and we'll
yeah.
get back to you, stuff like that.
Those are options, Tom. We can mail people things. The main objective of what we're doing, and this is with the Real Estate Partner Program, is to put leads in front of realtors. So with the 99 registered agents split among 11 real estate firms, those leads go to those real estate
But I think
agents.
that's
Not all
what-
of them are discovery packages.
I think that's what Carl is asking, which is, of the 903, and I realize it's a really tiny percent, are you going to get 3 names that you can give, or 5 names, or 12 names, that you can actually, with email addresses, that
Well-
you can actually give to the real estate community?
The leads per week in a heavy advertising period might be like 28 leads. I'm just thinking back in my head, this, we track them weekly.
Right.
So in a good week, 28, in a bad week, 18. So somewhere in that, let's just call it 25 leads a week. Those go to the real estate agents, and those are parsed out to the brokers. So, for example, if Clara Nicolosi from Remax has bought 30 seats out of the 99, then when her turn comes up, she gets those next 30 leads, and then it goes on to the next person and the next person. So, now what the broker does with those leads is totally up to them.
So what I hear you saying is, if you get additional budgeting, we wouldn't expect the 903 to go up. We would hope that the February to March
Correct,
and August to
correct.
October, October is actually 7-11, which is actually pretty big.
Yeah.
You expect those numbers to go
Well, August, October last year was an advertising, that was a heavy advertising
up?
period.
Okay.
Yeah, we would expect, in other words, you saw a drop in November. Here, you're gonna see a drop in September. And we would expect that 903 to extend out. Now,
Right.
there's some seasonality to it. Would it stay at 903 through the autumn? I don't know. I think it would still stay pretty high. I think this is a time of year, especially people who don't have kids in school are still getting out a lot.
Right. So it's kind of what you're saying, assuming the 28 per week is, the number, which is up,
Yeah.
that's 7 per day, so you get very roughly a 1% hit rate. Your shoulder months, the numbers will go up, and that incremental amount will then hopefully convert
Yes,
at roughly a 1% rate.
correct.
So that is the return. The return is we get more names to give to the
Yes.
brokers. And
Yeah.
hopefully they're happier with more names. The next tough question, and I realize when we give a name to the broker, it kind of disappears.
Right, they own it. We don't.
Right.
We do some reverse engineering to try to track and see what happened to each person,
Right.
but once it's theirs.
But what they don't want is a name and a phone number. What they want is a quote, quality name where they get somebody and they get some pulse or heartbeat or the mirror pulse on
Right.
the other end, as opposed to, sorry, this is all a big mistake. So, yeah, the next question is, like you said, I think you certainly started to go down, which is the idea that you're trying to reverse engineer about how effective are these leads, and of your 28, the 10 result in serious hits, or there's 14 or whatever.
Yeah, and the best we have is the discovery package data. Some of those leads could end up being buyers without a discovery package. One of the things we had the newcomers meeting, and you see all these new people, and it's like, how many came here on a discovery package? Well, maybe 15% of the room raises their hand, because there's a lot of ways to come in here with 11 real estate firms marketing the same thing we're marketing, just in their own way. We've got an expanded firepower. Now, most of what they do is local. I don't know how much they're doing of reaching out to other states the way we are. So we're really the first line of attack to try to get people's attention in here. And then what realtors do with them is up to them.
So then the other question I would have is that, so based on that same metric, if you didn't get the 100,000, that we would still plan on doing the April to August, and you wouldn't be able
It
to
would look, the
expand?
chart would look like this. There's some shifting around just in terms of more efficiency, such as
Okay.
getting rid of ideal living and just looking at things. We spent some money in California that was not the most efficient this year. So we can get a little more meat into the sausage this year, but it's essentially gonna be, I can't tell you we're gonna add another
Yeah.
6 weeks.
Okay.
And we're always looking. I'm one of the most frugal people you'll meet. And I will, I'll find efficiency somewhere.
Yeah.
And I've talked to sales agency, and I told them what we're trying to get, and it's like, we'll work with what you have, but again, we can expand out. We got a better shot at it if we get more.
So, Paul, an observation and a suggestion. Observation, don't have the data now, but boy, it sure would be nice. When those leads get generated and they get handed to the realtors, it sure would be nice if there was a closed loop process for that, where the realtors would then follow back up with us to give us information about how many of those things turned into business.
Kevin Sexton can sit better to this, but we've sat in this room many times with realtors, and we've hit some brick walls on
Yeah.
terms of, they pay us $250 a seat in this program, and they get the leads, and both for their own privacy and because it would take a lot more time and effort on their part, they don't have to tell us. Some of them do give information back, and Kevin can speak to that better than I can, but sometimes it goes into the dark hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so let me ask that question in a different way then. Right now, we've got 11 realtors, you said 99?
11 agents, 11 firms.
11
99
firms, 99 slots, I guess.
Yes, seats,
So are the real estate agencies buying more slots, buying less slots, buying about the same number of slots?
Something happened in this room last year that in 37 years of marketing, I've never seen, which was a customer telling us we were charging too low a price and telling us we needed to increase the price. So we increased it from 200 to 250. I think we went from 104 seats or 103 seats down to 99. So we did lose a few seats. We gained overall buy-in into the real estate partner program. That time of year is coming up again soon, and we will get their commitments to how many seats they want to buy.
Okay.
I don't hear any we've had really good meetings. We had a good meeting on July 7th with them. I don't hear any squawking that we're not getting our money's worth. If we have now generated in leads over, what's our number here for leads? 20, as of August 27th, we've had 819 leads generated, so that's for 8 months. 100 leads a month, so basically one per realtor per month. So $250 gets them 12 leads a year. That's $20 a lead coming out of our program. That's rough math.
Okay.
Now, even out of those leads, is there any idea like how much is actually turning into a new rooftop versus a resale?
No, I mean, that's, the new rooftops is the projected 135. So if we've had 90 rooftops so far today out of 800 leads generated, the problem is the lead is so far ahead in the funnel versus a rooftop, you'd have to do some kind of conversion rate, but, you know, do we get a new rooftop for every 10 leads? Perhaps. Yeah.
So, suggestion. Again, I think our challenge is trying to pony up what's effectively about 40% more, if my math is right, dollars than we spent last year. Would it be viable to do some portion of that $140,000?
Sure.
You know, slice it in half, you know, be able to put 2 or 3 weeks on the front end, 2 or 3 weeks on the back end from where you are.
Absolutely. Any point between A and B would help. So it extends us. We may look at, it's smarter to just extend August into October versus start earlier in March, or vice versa. We can certainly make cuts. We can be more selective in our markets, just to parse
Yes,
that out.
certainly would leave that to you and your team to figure out where the right place is to start and stop the advertising program. But
Well, I can go back and get a media plan constructed that would kind of show you months and markets. Would that be helpful?
I think it's helpful for you. I think it might be a little more data than we really need,
Okay.
to be honest with
Okay.
you. Yeah, I mean, you're the professional in that
Sure.
in that area.
And We have not put the agency through the steps of mapping it out to this detail, and we certainly can. I mean, I think that, you will get more time if we get more money. And especially with, some of the efficiency moves I talked about, like Ideal Living.
Well, like I said, I'm kind of floating that as an exercise for my teammates here. Yeah. I mean, the challenge that we've got, like I said, we're still in relatively austere times. There's certainly some attraction to be able to drive more traffic into the village and be able to drive more business opportunities. At the same time, I'm not sure we can tolerate full value.
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day.
Okay.
And but I'm open to suggestions from my teammates on is there a sweet spot in here somewhere?
Can you remind me where the sales contract is?
The contract, it's under advertising contracts, it's a $120,000 contract. It's basically buying 100 hours a month at $100 an hour. Right, am I doing that right? Yeah, no. Anyway, it's $10,000 a month, and that is not only, that's paying for the time in marketing consultation, in creative, and it even includes the photography and video, where most agency agreements you then have to go out and hire
That's not what the
outside
increase is, though.
photographers. So we're getting a lot of value out
As
of
we
that.
said, there's no change there. It's
Where's the big increase?
And again, another big thing versus most agency relationships is they are not marking up anything they buy for us. Everything is a pure pass-through cost. So everything on that line item there, that public relations, advertising, publications, that's media, that's passed to us at net. And
Okay.
it's the contracts where the agency gets its money.
All right.
So I'll just say what I'm thinking is that, in 2021, it appears that we've got some good metrics going. This is really the first year we've done it this way, right?
Yes, the first time we ever presented an ROI like that was January of this year.
Right. So to me, we're still dealing with COVID, we're still dealing with all these other issues that are going on out there. I think, to me, holding the line with maybe a small increase based on inflation and those kinds of things so that you can maintain what you're doing, because it is value added. But then, given the fact that we know that there are other pressing needs in the community to maintain the community looking good so that people will want to move here.
So it looks like what we advertise, yeah.
Right, so that what we advertise actually will be there when they get here. I think that makes more sense, and then that gives you another year to get your metrics even further aligned with that, and to maybe look at, okay, where are the sweet spots and how much that could be to more of an incremental versus such a big jump in advertising. That's what I see, just looking at what you've presented and what the other departments and everybody else are trying to do.
Sure.
So a couple of kind of just quick questions. So the Realtor Partner Program, where we're providing leads, did that just begin in 2021, or we've been doing that in 2020?
That began January 6th, 2020.
2020.
And we had, that was the first, so we've had now almost 2 full years.
Okay, so we've got a list of the leads that have been given to the realtors, right?
Yes, we do. And that's
Okay.
and this is where Kevin's department comes in. If Joe Smith from Joplin, Missouri converts into a house, and so we know that when Joe and Mary Smith come into the office and they register as new members. Okay, so go find them and then back them up into where they were a lead.
Well, that was my question, was
Yeah.
do we cross-match new POA
Yes.
numbers against that leads list, and so you could tell how many are being converted?
We-
Because you've
that's-
got 2 years' worth of data now.
Right, that's where the 17 conversions comes from on the.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
that is us doing reverse engineering.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
But
so I mean, I
those
think
with
some of
the-
the questions we had earlier that I didn't quite latch onto, or how do you marry up this to know whether it's being effective? I think you just answered that
Yeah.
question, that you do have data that can show you how many of
Yes.
those leads are being converted.
Yes.
Well, that ties with the discovery packages. It does not tie for if it was just something that they came across due to our advertising.
Well-
The 17 conversions is comprised with the
That's
list.
17, yes, from discovery packages. And Kevin could speak to this better than I could. If they become a lead but not a discovery package, what happens to that? There may be some
I was
more
thinking
value
in
there.
terms of when you buy property here, whether you're buying an existing home or a lot,
Yeah.
you become a POA member, you get a
become a-
new
yeah.
POA member number. It seems like you could cross-reference those member numbers against your lead list and know how many people on those leads actually converted into a property owner.
And that's what I'm saying, that's exactly what they do, but it's more specific to the discovery packages. So they're taking all of the new LBAs in that month and cross-referencing it to their discovery package bookings.
Yeah.
Since the-
But
since
Ford's
the
asking the
date.
broader
you're-
question.
That's why I said
That's-
You have the
you've
statistics
limited
on
it.
how many discoveries convert to property
Right, that's
owners.
the 17.
I'm asking a bigger picture, which is how many of the Realtor leads convert to property owners, which is probably a bigger number.
Yes, I was
so,
just trying to
yeah.
specify that that's
Yeah.
not what they're doing.
And you need Kevin. Yeah.
And that would kind of help us do a better cost-benefit analysis of marketing budget versus a new mower, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
because if we're generating revenue with the marketing dollars, then that'll buy the new mower.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the idea, is that
Yeah.
we increase rooftops and increase
But,
overall revenue.
but the trouble with marketing and advertising, and I know it's difficult.
Attribution and
There's
its
a lot,
length of
there's
time.
a lot of squishiness in there.
Yeah,
so.
and unlike, that's the beauty of the golf packages, is nobody's booking a golf package for October of 2024, but if somebody comes in here, that might be the month they move in here. Golf packages is really more of a retail play. I don't think people book more than about 3 months out.
Yeah. So I think maybe going forward, I think that's a good idea for it. I think there's data out there that can be mined. It's a question
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
having the bandwidth. Yeah, it sounds like the data's available, it's just a matter of figuring out how to mine it.
Yeah, and I'll talk to Kevin more about that. I was not prepared to talk to that and
No, that's-
how that works, but he's got systems and he's got a team that has worked on that.
And I think that's more a future recommendation
Okay.
thing, because again, you've got the discovery package data, that's great for a set of information. There's a couple of other sets of information that you might be able to garner useful data from to help make your position that marketing is effective. That said, I'm kind of resonating with Jeff's thought. What would you have in mind, Jeff, for a increment for next year?
Well, I mean, if we use what we've given kind of as basic guidance, right, which was, some kind of similar percentage that everybody's been using, the 4% or whatever type of increase is more representative of what everybody's doing to deal with increases in cost of procuring things and making that happen. And I'm sure in, Paul, your areas, prices are going up next year just like anybody else, so you give them a little bit more to be able to try and achieve the same level of service without some kind of decrease, because that's what I would think.
So an increment of roughly $10,000.
That would be 4% of 250.
Yeah, I would agree with that. My nature is I'm very skeptical of marketing
I know a lot of you.
and trade shows too, so it's not just
Yeah.
marketing. But, I always want to see how do you get to a 4 to 5 times your investment on return.
Yeah.
Numbers kind of show that, but I'm always skeptical about achieving those numbers. I think we do need better data, like has been suggested. And I think it's If it was me, I'd be zero, but I understand, I understand the incremental due to cost increases.
Yeah.
So that would be,
Yeah, that's
That's where I-
consistent with what we've done for other departments as well.
Okay.
Yeah, there's certainly recognition that there's been some cost, the reality of the world, especially this year, is there's a lot of cost increases everywhere. So,
Yeah.
Well, one thing to tell you is we've already got the sales agency's commitment to not increase its fee, and this will be the third year in a row they're charging us the same rate. The longer I am here, the longer we work together, the more work we get out of the same 1,000 hours. So it's really becoming a very efficient process. And then I'm able now to work, I am the marketing department, there is no other person, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so I kind of think that seems to be where the group is sort of
Okay.
coming down,
All right.
is roughly a $10,000 increment.
Okay.
And would definitely encourage exploring some of that other data going
Okay.
forward, because I think if your hypothesis is correct, that could be some very compelling data to make an argument for a future investment.
We really look at every single lead name that comes in and see where they end up, so. Okay, I appreciate that, I'll get with Kevin on that.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you, sir.
Thank you. So we have the administration side to go over. We've got Will with IT and Kim with HR here, so I'm gonna go ahead and skip the first two segments and let them go over theirs, so we can get them out of here, and then I'll come back to
Okay.
the
We're
first
going
two.
to IT.
Yeah.
Yes. So Will, we'll start with you.
No rainwater? Oh, you're gonna sit, okay.
So the way we've been doing this is just kind of going down, getting to the larger items, and then once we get into the capital, kind of going over those and stuff as well. And then any questions that they have in reviewing the data. So obviously IT is not your moneymaker, so there's no revenue. The wages, we have increased the staff this year already by 1. I made some adjustments there.
So that one, just looking at 2021 budget and 22 budget,
You're gonna be a bigger increase than just the one staff person, because we have had to adjust some salaries along the way as well. So the 2021's budget is low compared to what 2020's actual has been going. And then bringing on the extra person, that's in addition to that. So you're gonna see a bigger variance than just one salary. We've had to increase some people and pay some people a little bit more of what they should be being paid for the position. Hence, we've had 3 people in it so far, plus added a position.
okay.
Yeah, you can see that the 21 year-end forecast is about 33K over the 21 budget, so that probably reflects what you were talking about with the needs to adjust salaries.
Yes.
Your legacy IT types are necessary evils these days.
Yes, that's you. We're talking about you.
I would argue with that if I could, since I can't.
Let me freeze this real quick. Okay. You'll notice that there's been a big adjustment. Your computer software is actually 0 for budget. It is all being put down into the software maintenance. That is because these are ongoing subscriptions and maintenance fees. It's not new software that's been added. So we've been trying to do some cleanup across the board, and this is one of those areas. So just trying to explain why you see a large amount here and go to 0.
Okay, thank you.
They've got 7 network switches to be replaced in their hardware. Operating supplies, the budget is dropping. Some of the non-cap equipment, you were gonna put a comment in here. What did? And I think I hurried you along.
As far as the non-cap equipment, there were some higher numbers budgeted in the recent past, and I don't see where we're gonna need to spend that kind of money, because the IT department itself is not gonna have a huge need for ongoing equipment. What we're doing right now in the department is we're trying to find ways not to need additional equipment, do stuff with what we've got. And
You've got some
with that,
storage.
what's that?
You have some storage stuff that you were trying to get in,
There-
and some other items, that's what's making it.
Right, we do, we have been cleaning up a lot of the department. We have a storage area. We have 2 storage areas that we've deemed needing organization, and some of the storage supplies are included in that number. Bins, racks, things like that would take up those numbers.
So what I think I'm hearing you say, sir, is that 21,440 might be a little high for the 22 budget for non-cap equipment and furnishings?
Yeah,
The 20 was excessive.
I'm sorry.
The 20 from 21, is that what you're referring to?
But yeah, the 21 budget was 20,000, the 22 budget's like 21. Looks like,
it's at 9360.
It's 9.
So this is an updated from what you sent us.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry,
oh,
we were
excuse
working-
me, I'm looking down, I should be
Yeah.
looking up there.
No,
That's my bad.
I just
My
said
apologies.
the same
I-
thing. I'm looking at
Nope, nope,
21
nope,
here,
nope,
and
nope,
that
nope.
says 9, and I'm going, okay, I don't,
I apologize.
I made some changes this morning, I apologize.
That's all right, I stand corrected. Now I understand where the error was, and it was me.
So no, we're dropping budget there. That's what it was.
Gotcha,
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
The software maintenance, this has gone up. As I said, that's because of that reallocation.
So
And-
can I ask a question on that one? And this is just trying to understand what you explained earlier. So previously, you had it up in computer software, and last year, the budget was 36,000. This year, your budget is gonna be 30,000. You put it down in software maintenance, so it's $6,000 less.
Yes.
Well, but it's even more
That's pretty good
interesting.
for software.
Well-
Usually it's going up, not
They-
down.
Right, and
Well, but it's-
I'm not exactly sure about the numbers for last year. I don't know, I'm not exactly sure where they came from, but I basically went through every invoice that we've got as far as software maintenance is concerned. And that's the number that I came up with for those particular types of software, the Office, our primary application.
Okay.
We've been
The,
doing a lot
20
of cleanup over the year. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say the 21 year-end forecast is like 60,000. And then you're going down to 30.
Yeah.
I think that may be more of a question. It's like $30,000 is a huge decrease for software.
Oh,
It's bigger than
Well,
that, because there's also 19,000 in the maintenance line. So it's
Well-
really about 79,000
A
total.
big part of that is cleaning up the allocations and assigning it. So IT was still eating a part of it that needed to be allocated out to the other departments.
Okay.
So that's a part of the decrease. Another big part of the decrease is they, over the last year, have gone through and tried to clean up and get rid of excess fees across the board. Whether that is email user accounts that needed to be deactivated, because we pay, for each license, down to, are there license on other software applications that needed to be gotten rid of? Are we overpaying for stuff that we can do in-house? So they've done a lot of work on trying to reduce unnecessary expenses. So
Okay.
that's a big part of all those.
So it sounds like this reduction isn't quite as big a reduction as it looks like but there's been a different formula for allocating those costs.
Yes.
you'll see some, the allocations for the software maintenance vary over maybe what you've seen in the past for various different departments, because those allocations are true allocations that I've found through my research.
Okay.
How many areas in the overall budget are you doing allocations on? I know computer software stuff.
It's IT, fleet, building maintenance, and the HR, the ADP stuff, which kind of falls into the legal professional, along with the concur.
Yeah.
Everything, that's it.
Now, I think I brought it up last time. You showed it for capital, but this is just a go-forward suggestion, do whatever. But I personally would like to see an IT budget with no allocations in it. What you do with it accounting-wise is okay, it's whatever y'all want to do. But an IT budget, because trying to figure out software stuff, just the total number just gets lost, because it's going to every other place, which is fine to determine cost of a department or whatever, but it's just hard to follow telephone cost or computer cost or whatever else there is. You know, it's just hard for me to follow. It's like, look here, and here, and add it up, and that's our total software cost. Just be easier for us to look at it from a high level.
Does the software track it that way? In other words, like
Yes.
you showed us the other day that you could roll up all building maintenance or whatever. Is there a way to track and show us what software costs the POA?
Yes. I can pull up software maintenance, regardless of department, regardless of anything, and it's all your software costs across the board.
So just based on the GL account.
Yes.
Okay.
But if I don't prepare the budget in this format and I give you guys an all-inclusive IT budget, but then we allocate it out, when you're going to compare budget versus actual, you're gonna say, why are you all off and why is IT way over? And
There's like one more step that could be done, which is for budgeting purposes, you could still put in what I call our bill back account or retro account, or where you may budget 100,000 for software and you can detail it out, but then you have another line that's minus 100,000, that's what's going to all the departments. But at least it gives us an idea of the overall cost. Just a suggestion.
I don't mind trying to do something that would make it easier to follow here, as long as we're still able to accurately represent it in our financials.
Yes.
Got it. Yeah.
So the line, software licensing, is the very bottom. We need, yeah. That's not total software maintenance?
No,
No.
That's just allocated to this department?
Yeah, and then you gotta go to every other department, find their software maintenance line, add them all up, and then you'd figure out how much we pay as a POA for software. If I understand it right.
That is correct.
but it's kind
Okay.
of the same thing with the phone bill and stuff. So are you guys saying you would want all of the phone bills to be in one department and not with where all those lines are at and copiers? I mean, I do understand where you're coming from. I 100% get it. But then you could apply that to every single type of account we have, because it's all broken down to divisional level and department level. But when you roll it all up,
You get into,
It's really the big ones that matter in that regard.
we have, how many telephone bills?
Yeah, lots.
Probably 60, 70 a month,
Close to 60, yeah.
separate bills?
separate
Yes.
bills.
Yeah.
I thought we had a contract with AT&T this beginning.
We do, but AT&T has so many various different divisions that they create invoices for each one of those. Like, for instance, we have every POTS line, if you're familiar with POTS, plain old telephone system, the copper that comes into your home. We have probably a half a dozen different invoices just for individual POTS lines, because they invoice us for those separately. That is one of the projects that IT will be taking on, is trying to consolidate some of that. But because AT&T, we do so much with AT&T, and they have so many different divisions within the company. For instance, our networking equipment comes from a different division than what our POTS lines do. our internet comes from a different division than what our networking equipment comes from. So we have many different invoices based on the telephony that we use throughout the village. So there's going to be some consolidation throughout 2022 because that's one of the things that I want to do. In my experience with AT&T, it is a real pain.
Well, we do have
And-
consolidated billing in some of them.
In some of them,
And we have
yes.
those broken down so they get charged out. But then other ones, you'll get, this is your fire station phone bill, you know? So
Right.
it's different scenarios, but coming back to the whole point though, you can still,
What we're going to do is we're going to be working with AT&T to take some of those individual POTS lines or individual invoices and see if we can merge them in with an existing account that we already have.
So it was preparing for this that you uncovered some unneeded billing this summer?
As far as the software maintenance, no, it's more of a reallocation of the actual costs involved. So if you see 60,000 in software, what I found was that the allocation might not have been exactly correct, and it was allocated to the correct department. So what you'll see is over the various different departments in their software maintenance line, you'll see an increase in the numbers over previous years. So it washes eventually, but it's just allocated differently over previous years.
So I think, I understand why Karina's got things broken out the way they do and allocated. It also sounds like we have the ability via the ITs, via the systems that we have, we also have the ability to roll it up. So I think, and I'll call it a recommendation for next time, you know,
Yeah.
what would be nice, and it doesn't sound like it would be difficult to do, and it doesn't affect necessarily the budgeting, but it would be for these allocated things like the telephone and the IT and stuff like that, pull it all together, be able to say, okay, here's what we spent last year, here's what we're planning on spending this year. The whole idea being, we up, down, the same, you know, what's the extenuating circumstances and all of that. And then from a budgeting standpoint, all of those allocations get handed out however the allocation math works. So it doesn't affect the budgeting process, but it probably makes it a little bit easier for the folks that are going to be sitting here next year to compare apples to apples against some of these allocation accounts.
let me just show you guys. Did I get the right one? Bear with me, sorry.
75-25 maybe?
Well, that's not where it typically was. Oh,
Oh,
I know it.
yeah.
So that is exactly how much was spent in software across the board for 2020 is $130,234.24. So I can then be able to go in, and I'll just show you just one piece, because there's a million different ways to arrive at this. But then I have every GL account in this particular month that was hit for that software. So I can roll them up however we need to, but like you said, as far as trying to get true representation, when the budget is actually entered, it should be in this form.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, what I would like to do, and this is off topic, but is eventually what I would like to be able to do with our financials is to provide you not just the detail that you see right now, where, and this is a change from what it was a year ago as well. In the past, you didn't even get a department breakdown. You only got a division breakdown. So now you at least get all the departments, and you're able to see that. But I would really like to be able to work to is very simplified. Here's your divisional breakdown and departmental breakdown into your categories. Here's your revenue, here's your overhead. Very simple categories, because I don't want to overcomplicate things. And then you'd have your roll-up, and you'd be able to see that. And if at that point you guys are wanting to see an overall line by line, that's possible as well. So there are things I would like to be able to provide in a completely different manner than what they are now, that give some of that information. But as far as the allocations go, I do think we need to allocate it the way we are.
So is
we get the
this,
allocation.
is this the first year that you've allocated the individual line items, like taken,
2020 is when I started.
okay?
There are still some pieces to clean up. So fleet was already being done, IT was already being done, and building maintenance. HR was not, which that's only the ADP Gallagher stuff that's being allocated there for the payroll services. And then the accounting software, which flows over to him. Like I said, in the past, it was not allocated. I understand it's much simpler if you don't, but you don't know what that department's really costing you. And when we ran into cases where you had $110,000 in repair cost, and it doesn't get identified to the department that's causing that issue, it just comes back to the cost accounting side of it, you know. Going back to that production cost side that I'm kind of used to as well, is
Right.
assign it where it belongs and know what it's costing you to run that.
Yeah, none of us have ever seen somebody abuse a control account that was owned by somebody else in our careers. Okay. So it looks like I think we've killed software maintenance and probably then some. Looks like the ADP, I know the ADP stuff's allocated. Sounds like the telephones are allocated.
I have a question. What does ADP Gallagher, it says cost of employees, what do they actually do?
Process our payroll,
Excuse me?
process our payroll.
Oh, okay.
Automated
Formerly
data
known as
processing.
ADP.
Old
Is it
payroll
ADP
company.
is Gallagher and then
It's
Echo?
ADP and Gallagher. I'll let Kim
Okay.
speak to that part, because that's her line.
Okay.
Gallagher is the professional services based upon the,
They provide us our benefits.
Right.
They are our broker, so to speak. So every month, there is a fee that goes out, and we're going to allocate it head count wise this year going forward.
thank you. Here you can see that there is a decrease in their legal and professional fees. I think you've got a note. They've dropped the accountability back up, so that's where I said they've been going through this year and trying to do a lot of cleanup. And they dropped that monthly bill from what, $7,700 a month to
From-
$1,400?
From 7,000 to 1,400 a month. That's why you're gonna see a big drop for next year, is that, Paul, who was the interim before me, he went through and cut a lot of the services that this company provides for us because it wasn't necessary, we could do it in-house. And he cut the backup cost down to 1,400 a month.
Okay, cool. Okay.
The telephone, that's what that allocation and spreading it out. Everything else is pretty minor. The capital items that they have in there is the backup server.
Now, this is where, this backup server, it's a SAN, it's called, a SAN, stands for Storage Area Network. Again, we have 4 people in the IT department now. We have in-house expertise to be able to provide the services for backup and restoration. And to, believe it or not, that legal fees that we pay that company for will be dropping once we implement the SAN. It will provide us with quicker turnaround time and a lot more storage available to everybody for their files. And as you know, files are very important, and when you lose one, you want it back immediately.
Yeah.
So,
So it looks like you're taking some of the reduced contract cost, investing it here, stand up your own server farm.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, I'm just curious, has the village experienced any cyber attacks, and whether we have or we haven't, do you feel like we're pretty well prepared to defend against that sort of thing, or how do you feel like we're fixed for that?
I'm not aware of any cyber attacks. I'm sure I would have found out day one, had we had any. And as far as our posture, with the services that we have in place, our posture is good. I can tell you, there's always room for improvement, and that's one of the projects that I'm going to be taking on this next year, is to create a plan to improve on that even further. So, but at this point, I feel very confident that we could withstand a cyber attack at this point.
And I think forward a little data, because that question actually got asked back in the spring.
I'm sorry?
That question actually got asked back in the spring, and my understanding is a lot of the servers that went to a virtual machine, kind of an architecture, so it was contract service provider with the contract provider's security architecture around it. And from what Paul was telling us here probably 9 or 10 months ago, they actually will attempt to hack your system and check your security rules and all of that sort of thing, and it sounded like we passed.
That's one of the services that we have. It's vulnerability scanning and penetration testing, and that is covered by our contract with AT&T for our perimeter. They will actually attempt to, as you said, hack our system. I was asked to give you some background on me. In 2008, I acquired a certification known as a CISSP. That stands for Certified Information System Security Professional. I've maintained that certification for the past 13 years. I consider myself well-versed in security as well as security theory. I can pretty much write several different plans on several different ways of doing things as far as security, and it is actually a passion of mine. So it's I think it's one of the reasons why I was hired, and it's one of the reasons why I'm here, is that I know that I can add value in that respect.
Awesome. Couple other questions for you?
Sure.
So this, I understand this, and so that will have to be refreshed on a regular on some kind of cyclical basis. So is that in your plan, or that will be in your plan, I guess?
It will be in my plan. In a piece of equipment like that typically has a 5-year write-down. So yes, we would be considering doing this again in 5 years. Hopefully in 5 years we won't have the chip shortage. And hopefully it'll be somewhat more inexpensive. So.
And then the second question I had is that the next item on your list there is security camera systems, 35,000.
Yes.
Is that a 2022 and we're done, or is this going to be multiple iterations? Just trying to understand what the game plan is there.
In a security camera system, it is an in-house type of system. The physical cameras, of course, cost money. The storage would be in-house as well. In my last capacity, I put in basically a $48,000 camera system for a hospital, and it's a very robust system, but yes, there will be maintenance over time. Again, it's very similar to the SAN. The storage is a pretty large part of it, and hard drives fail over time. Eventually, the device will go end of life. Hopefully, that will be well beyond the 5 years. Just because we write it down over 5 years doesn't mean we can't use it beyond 5 years. So,
Just trying to understand the outlook piece.
Right.
So.
In the past, I've had servers that were still running 10 years after we put them in place. So, I mean, some hardware is robust, some hardware will fail within the first year. It's, unfortunately, it's the nature of the beast.
Okay.
One more security question.
Yes, sir.
With all the credit cards that POA has to deal with, do you guys have to go through like PCI compliance and?
The PCI compliance comes from Total E, if I'm not mistaken. They help us with that PCI compliance. So yes, I mean, if we accept credit cards, PCI compliance is a mandate. But as far as I know, the company that we contract to for our primary application helps us with through that process.
Okay.
I just had one other question, sir, and that was actually a 21 item. The phone system was budgeted for 200K. It looks like the year-end forecast is 60. Is it done at 60 when it was just a really good deal?
I'm not
Go ahead.
I'm not exactly sure why they budgeted 200K.
Okay.
What you'll see is in the telephony piece of every budget, every department's budget, you're going to see the ongoing monthly costs of the new phone system. Because they charge, I think it's $20 per license. So those are incorporated in the telephony of every department. The hardware itself, I don't know if you saw the board meeting or the board discussion meeting earlier, but the hardware is going to be less than $50,000. So give or take. I mean, we have a certain number of devices that we are purchasing, and the order has gone through. However, as we get into setting these phones on desks and configuring the phones and everything like that, we may find that we may need a couple here, a couple there, or something like that. So.
Okay. Well, that's good. Nice to done around.
I'm already saving money.
I didn't have anything else there.
No other questions regarding IT? Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
I will speak with Kim. We don't have any headcount changes in our in our HR department. I would say the only thing that is a little bit different than budget for last year is we are utilizing one of our prior employees on a part-time as-needed basis, and so that has been added to the 2022 budget.
Correct.
It was not a factor of all in 2021.
Correct. We have a new payroll person that joined us late last year. We had to bring somebody in and do quite a bit of auditing of a person that was here for a very short time to make some corrections. And so we have her slated to help us get through year end, all the tax records, all the submissions and stuff. So yes, that's where her money comes from.
Yeah, so that's why you see part-time wages this time and not last time.
The salary increases, just pay increases, wage
The
increases.
changes that took place during the year and stuff, yes.
Yes, I too suffer from trying to keep staff, and I have had to adjust accordingly to retain my senior person who Hot Springs tried to steal out from under me, and likewise. So yeah, I suffer the same challenges of everybody.
Along with the increases that we've built in
Yeah,
Correct.
with that.
confirming.
Let's see.
I don't have a lot.
So I got two real quick ones, and just
Sure.
because they kind of jump out at you, which was safety equipment and supplies.
Yeah, it's interesting. So those fall under HR for some reason. We're not exactly sure why. I'm also in charge of the safety team for the POA. So we have to buy certain things to those Sharps containers that they do over at the fire station. I have to pay for those.
But
And so they
I understand now.
yeah, they just end up there.
And the medical fees is a similar thing?
That was all COVID related. We went through a really high period where we were testing multiple people every day at the Apollo Clinic. And so we were paying $95 a pop for about 3 months there. That has slowed down, excuse me, considerably.
So is the 72 then needed for medical fees?
Well, what we're confronting right now is we cut off our services to that service to the employees on April 1 when everybody had the opportunity to be vaccinated. As we move forward into this, people have breakthrough of the variants and stuff like that. They're having to get tested at their own expense. John Paul has asked me, and I have put together a plan to continue to test those people rapidly at our expense so we can get them back to work 3 days 15 minutes versus the 3 days for the insurance for that testing. So there's a whole process we're going to go through. So I think it's still needed, especially as we go through. They're saying we'll have another version come out, another variant. But Karina and I did discuss that at length.
Sounds like an unfortunate reality in a 45% vaccinated state.
Yeah, the CDC guidelines, though, for the rapid test tell you that it's only 60% accurate, so it's not. The
70
CDC guidelines would say you have to do the long test if you truly want to protect your employees, so I just trying to understand what you're doing there. And the long test doesn't cost you anything, but it does cost you people's time because they won't be at work.
That is
Get the
correct.
results back, which is typically running 24 hours now, not 3 days like it used
So
to be.
let me tell you, it does cost us because if there are insured through us, we pay for that anyways. It just extends it out because we are self-insured.
Oh,
We paid in the claims.
So, yeah, we pay the claim, so it's going to be a wash. So according to CDC, if they are vaccinated and they test negative, they can come back to work that day. So that's what we're working a plan towards,
okay,
okay?
fair enough.
Okay.
So I'm curious, what is you just said, Marcel, what's the group insurance? And in the budget is 35% higher than the forecast.
Group insurance.
Okay, so that is, every position that is full-time has the opportunity to take the benefits. I personally do not take the POA benefits, so I am a cost savings of $10,000. If I were to leave, whoever comes behind me has that opportunity, so we must maintain that for a full-time opportunity.
So, but I guess I'm asking more the question of what's the increase related to the,
It's putting that assumption back in.
okay.
If you're looking at budget to budget, or are you looking at forecast
Well, I'm looking at, the forecast was
21?
22,000, the budget's 23,000, 34% increase, and it's not big dollars, but the increase just looked like it was really big, the percentage.
To the 29,000 budget, you mean?
Yeah, I'm looking at.
The 22 to the 29.
Yeah, 22 to 29, I'm looking at year-end forecast, 21,988, compared to 22 budget, 29,532.
It's that she doesn't participate.
I don't participate personally.
Yeah.
The person who, if this position were to come open in '22, it will need to have the benefits attached to it.
I understand now. I follow what's going on now. Thank you.
But didn't you also, and that's reflected in column L, that you probably are seeing an insurance decrease overall? Is that still, I think you'd mentioned that
Yes.
a week or so ago. Is that still valid?
We did not put in any increase. We've left it stagnant.
That was our understanding when we met with the broker in August, is we were running really, really well, all things considered. So
Okay.
we will finalize that number, unfortunately, closer to November. They don't sign us on the dotted line until they have as much information as possible.
So
So we hope nobody does something stupid with a piece of power equipment for about 6 more weeks.
Exactly. We need everything to be calm for 6 more
Yeah.
weeks so we can lock in our rates for next year.
Well, and it actually, this is down a little bit, and I think that that is part of one of those how it was coming over. If you're looking at the 21 budget to the 2022 budget, I think that's what you're referring to, the
Yeah.
$3,000 drop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we're looking at.
And I did not go in and change the amount, so what we were provided is what our true cost is as of right now, and what we had built the budget on with last year was our estimate as well, and so then they come back now and saying it won't be an increase, but it's actually more of an actual number versus last year's budget. If that makes sense.
What's your maximum exposure per employee under coverage?
Isn't it $100,000?
$100,000.
100,000?
And then we have the riders that protect us.
Have you figured out like what your kind of average cost is? Or average premium payment or medical payments?
Yeah, we know what that number is. And basically it's 900 and whatever. Is that
It's almost
almost 1,000?
10,000.
Yeah,
10,000?
It's 10.5, 10.7,
Okay.
something.
a year.
Yeah.
And I think we had budgeted 11.3 or 11.8 last year,
Okay.
not knowing, so.
And again, we are self-insured, so, I mean, that number is what she accrues every month for all eligible employees.
I'll just jump back in over here then, if we're okay on the salary side. The legal and professional fees has gone down drastically. That is because of allocating out the ADP and so forth. We are on a higher trend for this year, just because there have been some legal matters that we've had to consult with the legal team there as well. So 5,000 is what we have budgeted for next year.
Given that, never mind. 18, 19, and 20, they're up,
They had it.
and that was
of it.
all of ADP cost in there.
Yeah.
Got it.
Software allocation, the phone allocations. You've got some, that recruiting and training, and that's about all HR's got. They're kind of short compared to some of the others. Any other questions with HR?
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I will jump over to our assessments tab. Let's see if I can make this any smaller. No. So what we've done is I've taken the 5.8% increase along with the 150 assumption of new rooftops. This is taking 50 of our POA, I've got it here, so don't let me fib. 75 of the POA lots and 75 unimproved to transition to improved lots. So that's where we've come up with the 19.3 million. And then the 798,000, that's all of our late fees and all of that come into play with our assessment billing.
There's really 800,000.
That's historical? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it looks
I
like-
see it's historical, but there's really 800,000 of late fees every year.
Yeah, 801, 778, 777.
And are a lot of those accruing based on those who will like never pay?
Correct.
Okay.
So it's $7.50 a month
Yeah.
for every month that it is behind, and that's a balance of 5 cents. It doesn't matter.
If somewhere in the universe it's being offset by essentially a bad debt.
Yeah, pretty much. Once it hits to a point. and
Right.
then
So
rolls
I
over.
mean, somewhere there's a negative or an offset.
Oh, yeah, the 4.9 down there.
Now, we do recoup a lot of fees, but no, the majority of this is all, it's gonna be with your bad debt.
Yep.
But there is that fee that does apply. The 40,000 is the golf membership assignments.
Explain that one.
That is where you can buy the rights, you can pretty much get the golf membership rights without actually owning a lot. You get listed on on the POA lot, and I believe it's $500.
It's not only golf though, right? If I get, because my wife did this, she went in and got a lot, but she had all access, all amenities. So it's a,
Because you bought a lot?
no, she didn't buy a lot, she bought, it's just like Jeff does with his lots, he sells amenity packages. So is it just golf, that's why I'm asking the question, is this just golf or is this amenity packages?
No, it's amenities.
John Paul, do you know?
Yeah, it's amenities.
It's amenities, so.
The 500 is a single. There's another fee for a double.
Yeah, it's
Right,
For husband and
but
wife.
this says golf, and I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
it's
in
on-
reality, it should just be
It's membership.
amenities. So, and I think that's important to clarify that we're not, this is just not golf.
No,
Somebody
it-
can
it
get
property
pickleball or
underwrites
whatever.
Yeah, that's my mistake, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So at $500 a pop, you're talking roughly 80, if they all are individuals, I believe they are. There's roughly 80
Total
people who like this
participants,
stuff.
yes.
That's probably.
In
Okay.
addition, what's interesting is it's a significant increase over 20 actual. That's not that significant. But we're not selling them. People are just coming out of the woodwork saying, I want one.
We send out a monthly renewal letter to those that already participate in
Right.
it and let them know that their stuff is expiring and ask if they want to re-up.
But the numbers are going up. Well, this number went up.
Yeah.
It is not advertised.
But yeah, we don't advertise it, it'd be all word of mouth.
Right.
But I think what may be driving it up, Tom, is this is a case where the POA is in competition with some private individuals.
Yeah.
But it's my understanding that those private individuals' available slots have
Yeah.
been consumed. So right now, the market's, the only game in town for folks who want to get a membership is to contact the POA, and that's probably why the revenues are up.
It's consumed because everyone who wants to assign their membership to an outside person.
Yeah, there's a limit to how many assignments can be made on an individual lot.
Two.
So if somebody has 50 lots and they're making money by assigning those memberships to people, once they sell 100, once they have 100 people on their roster,
Right.
they can't sell anymore. You know, and when and there are 2 or 3 folks out there that do that for fun and profit, but once they're at 100% saturation, then the only other opportunity for somebody who wants to acquire a membership to the village is to contact
But
the
we're not at 100% saturation on that.
We're not, but the third-party
I'm
providers
sorry,
are.
I mean, the third parties are at 100%
They just borrow a whole
saturation.
bunch more.
Well, their only option would be to buy more lots.
Well, they just did,
Yeah.
so.
Well, this isn't tied to how many lots we have. We don't have a cap on how many we would be able to assign over.
I guess the question we're really asking is that if we look at the budget for '22 versus the budget for '21, we're showing an increase in the number of people that are going to take amenity membership assignments. How did we come to the calculation that more people than are currently using the amenity lot membership are going to happen this next year by about $8,800?
Well, if you look at what our actual is and the forecast, I'm really just keeping it in line with our current status.
Yeah.
Because
Here's treading water.
Your current trend line.
Yeah, if your actuals are gonna be 39.4, there's very little. That's the forecast for year end.
so I didn't assume any growth. I just kept it stagnant.
If I own a lot and I want to assign it to just more, let's say, and I sell it for $250,
You can do that.
there's a fee though to pay the POA to do
Yes.
that? But that's something completely different.
That's a fee.
Okay.
Okay.
So our taxes, there's an increase there. That's associated with the Commissioner State Land ones that we're in the process of acquiring. So adding I think it was like 28,000 back in for that. The bad debt is being budgeted for 4.9. Last year, we budgeted the 3.9. As you guys know, as we've gone through each month of the financials and the changes that have taken place there, we are on projection to hit the 4.9 by the end of the year. So I think that is at the minimum of what we need to be looking at, and we don't need to be assuming we'll be collecting more as I have in the past. So, and what that's doing is taking all of our balances over the 1 year and figuring out that balance on a monthly basis and computing it over. Because once it hits 1 year, we account for bad debt. Once it hits 5 years, then we actually write off that balance. Now, we are making a change with the Commissioner of State Land, though, as I've mentioned before, and as those are being brought back to us, and that sale is taking place, at that point, we are going ahead and writing off that bad debt, and then going ahead and acknowledging it now instead of waiting the 5 years. So that's part of this increase as well. And we've been doing that for the last several months.
Would you anticipate that trend to continue going forward, or is there a little bit of a bow wave that we're working off because of the Commissioner of State Lands properties that's eventually going to be worked out?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
You've increased the allowance for bad debt, a lot of it because of the Commissioner of State Lands properties that the POA acquired.
Well,
But you're also writing it off in a little bit more accelerated way right now than you had been historically. Is that something that's going to continue for a year or two and then start to taper down again, or do you expect that to be kind of our foreseeable future?
well, I would think it should taper down, especially if we've assumed or consumed most of the rest of the Commissioner of State Land lots. And it doesn't make a big difference at all, honestly, in this amount. This truly is just what's outstanding over a year old,
Okay.
regardless of it being the Commissioner of State Land. So even though we've been writing those off and it does have an impact, just looking at the trend of what we've done every month, we're looking at writing off between $385,000 and $425,000 a month. Not writing off, but accruing for bad debt.
Okay,
So, and that's where that calculation is primarily from.
thank you.
Do we have enough experience, this is a little off the subject, but do we have enough experience yet with those third-party bulk buyers from the state? Have any of them, have they started paying assessments, or are they?
I know of one large grouping that has, because they've come in, they've paid the title transfer fees and all of that stuff, and have been on board. I can't really speak to the others. I'd have to go and find out for sure before I'd say anything.
Sure. I
You're
don't
talking
think-
about Jeff and Dennis, that we know.
The ones that have
Yeah.
bought the big groups.
Now, as far as the new people that have bought, they aren't paying.
But, yeah, the big numbers from,
The speculators.
They're not paying.
they're trying to dump and run, I guess.
Yeah, well, they come in, buy them for nothing, try to sell them to the next door neighbor for $100 more or $1,000 more, and then they're gone in 6 months.
And the one I'm speaking of, I believe they've bought roughly 60 lots. It's not near the quantity of what they've gone and consumed,
Suggestion.
900 lots.
60 lots, 60 lots.
So,
yeah.
But to answer your question a minute ago about the guys that sell the amenities, they are buying. One
They
bought
bought more.
19 at the last auction, and they continue to buy.
any questions on this assessment side? Okay. So on the admin side, any smaller for you guys. Sorry, I don't like when I can't read half the words. Okay, so we've added the buy-in fee that was discussed. Looking at the last couple of years of average and year-to-date and how we've been trending, took the assumption of 700 improved lots and 1,500 unimproved lots at the $1,500 and $250 increments, which is how we arrived at the 737,000. Let's see what else kind of jumps out.
Can I ask you about the 700 improved lots? That's just basically off of trend, correct?
Yes, that's going in and looking at how many deed transfers have taken place over the last couple of years and whether they were improved or unimproved.
Okay.
Is this on every transaction? Or, I don't know, for some reason I thought it was like for new people coming in.
It would be, yes.
And so there's 700 transactions about a year?
No, we're actually trending above that.
So you took a percentage of the actual.
Yes, and I looked at, in 2021, we're trending extremely high compared to the past. So, like, we've already had 2,700 or 2,300, I think it's 2,700 this year, where last year we had 1,800 or so, 1,900. The year before that, it was less. And so trying to kind of see, and I know we're not gonna stay just soaring through for the sky, so trying to kind of bring it back down to what an average would maybe look like.
So in terms of crystal ball, and I realize that the crystal ball in this case is really murky, it seems that you're trying to make that 700 on the conservative side.
Yes.
You're not pushing it.
Well, I think it's very conservative.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I've got to admit, I'm trying to wrap my head around the math. So,
The math works.
I can bring it up.
I did it. It works.
okay, because 700 improved lots at $1,500 a head is over $1 million. So something's not, so that's why I'm struggling with math.
Well,
Well,
250
it's
for
half a year.
unimproved.
You don't assume everything occurs. Oh, yeah, you're right. It's not a half.
That's a one-timer.
It's
That's
a
a
one-timer.
one-shot.
One-time
It's
fee.
double that.
Yeah,
Huh?
It's double that.
It's a one-time fee.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not like assessments where it's
Yeah.
spread through the year and you have to make a mid-year assumption.
yeah, you just make a mid-year, you just make an assumption that
Yeah, you
everything's
just
mid-year and
multiply-
it averages out,
You
yeah.
multiply 700 times 1,500 plus 1,500 times,
What did I do?
I think you divided by half.
I don't know what I
That looks
did
like a
either.
mid-year assumption.
But it's also new owners. It's not
Well,
somebody.
that's the
That's
next
true.
question, which is, of the 700,
See, and I
which of
did,
those are qualifying and non-qualifying, and how do you know?
see, and what I had was just a grand total. That's why I did not take the highest amount, knowing that some of those would not apply.
Right, but, so the 700, she's guessing that, that is after you
What
take out the
percentage
people,
were
the
you considering
non-qualified.
was it take?
And that's probably
trying to
not an
find it. I did the
unreasonable number,
monthly.
because right now, we're on track. Last year, we sold,
Just 710.
no, we sold more than that. We sold, according to the real estate folks, we sold more than that. And we're on track to match the sales in '21 that we had in '20, or very, very close to that number.
It was about
What was
50.
that number, Larry?
I'm sorry?
What was the number?
I'm trying to remember, and this will, what happens when I don't bring my phone with me, but I bet Jeff can find it in
I
his
do.
email,
I have it.
because I sent a note
Okay,
out. When I
here's
get
what I
the dump
did.
from the real estate people, I send a dump out.
So I had the 2020s sales and the 2021s. This is every month, improved
Yep.
versus unimproved.
Improved,
I don't
unimproved.
have whether it was in-house or out yet, okay?
No, you just have the numbers.
So when you come down and you look,
691, okay.
and that was just for the improved,
Mhm.
this was the unimproved.
Okay.
This is where it equates to the dollars, and What did I do here? I did this over a month ago, guys, sorry.
So it looks like you're using,
So I'm told.
60%?
that's okay.
So-
Looks like you're using about a 25% rate of people
Yeah, I took.
buying a second home or moving home, something like that. So you're using about 75% hit.
And so that's where I've added them up. But what are you guys saying I messed up on?
So, not trying to do the math in my head, dangerous thing to do.
I mean, I equated this, that's times the 1,500, those are times the 250. That's the 2020's amounts. Here's 2021's amount.
Okay.
And
And then you took some
And then I-
percentage of that because it's only 700,000 that you're projecting.
correct.
So what was the percentage that you used, would be the question that just so we all follow the same math.
Half.
Looks like
It's about pretty close to half.
50%.
Pretty close, a little
Like
over 50,
half?
actually, about
Yeah,
51
it's
or
about
52.
half, about half.
Yeah, it's rough, a little less than half, actually.
Yeah. Because, let's see. And that's where I was trying to come back over here and see what I did on. So my math over here was the 1,500 times 700 plus the 250 times,
Well, then you
That's
divide-
where
then
I'm
divided
at.
by 12.
well, that's just to get my total amount divided by 12, so my year end comes out the correct amount. Because this isn't a monthly column.
Oh, okay, got it.
But this is, let's see, 1,500 times the 700.
2,200.
This is where I should have had. You guys, I don't do good on the spot. Bear with me.
We'll just go back to that right there, and then, you know, add that, those two, just do the average of your totals there for the 2 years, equals average, put the 2 in there.
Gonna be about, yeah, it's called
And
off the
then
screen.
take that.
1 million, yeah.
And that's 1.1 million, and then you use 737,000, so just divide it by that to get our percentage, and then we know how much you took. 737,500.
My key won't work. What did I do? Sorry.
2/3 of it.
Oh, my number lock. 66%.
66% is what you took. Okay? So 65% of the people would be new. If you did the 2-year average, it would be a little bit more than that.
Well, that's the average off of the 2 years.
Okay, that's the 2-year average, okay.
Yes.
All right.
In the research that you guys did, do you feel like it would be something completely different and I'm off base?
Mm-hmm. Larry did all that math, so when he comes back, he can double check, but from my memory, that was pretty close.
The unapproved lot of 2232, does that have some super large transaction? I mean, that's just a big number.
That's gonna be, that includes your commissioner estate land, that's everything. This is strictly a deed changed
Right.
owners.
Because I would think the 1,500 may be, shall we say, optimistic?
Yes, and
Because,
that's,
yeah.
that's why I said I didn't wanna go in with
Right.
just how we're trending now, knowing that
Mhm.
we could end up seeing a decrease,
Yes.
especially as the commissioner estate land lots are being taken away and there's not left, as much left. So, Sorry I messed that up, you guys.
You messed it up.
Yeah.
I think the bottom line is, at least
1,500
from a bunch of guys on this side of the table, the 737 is probably low in terms of just a swami guess, because that's what it is.
But given it's the first year that we'll be trying it, I'd rather be low
Okay.
than
Yeah.
high. And then we can refine once we get data.
Yes, because I did this at 1,500 and I did this at 700. Assumption of units. This is what we've seen, but we know that's not how we're gonna end up being going forward.
Okay.
So, I mean, I can adjust it, but I think I would rather be conservative.
I'm inclined to agree with keeping it conservative for now. We'll just have to let history tell us where it's gonna go. I don't know that we have any kind of accurate feel for, like, the last couple of years, the number of people that are coming in from outside versus the number of people that are, you know, buying a house and selling a house, moving, either sizing up or sizing down, or whatever it is they might be doing. Or buying an investment property, something like that.
This is the membership assignment revenue, which is exactly what you guys were talking about earlier, if you sign your rights over. Let's see. The other big change here is the real estate sales. We really didn't budget to do much of any of that. We didn't have a real estate program in place with all the transitions that have been taking place over the last year and a half or so. Obviously, they've ramped up. They are doing some of that work there. So this is just as far as trajectory goes and trying to see what plan is being developed for next year, so.
Again, that's probably good to take a conservative position because the market's been white hot. Sooner or later, that's gonna change. It's
Yeah.
anybody's guess when.
And, well, and you can see the forecast I have is more than what I'm budgeting, which reflects that.
So I think the underlying assumption is 200 lots, $1,000 per lot, which I assume is net. So, I mean, we're paying real estate commissions out of that.
Where are you looking at?
The
Oh, here?
200,000,
Lot sales.
right.
Yeah,
So it's basically 200 times 1,000.
yes. Well, and that's the fact of them setting a floor for $1,000 minimum on a sale.
Okay.
You know, there are ones that they've sold at 7,500 a lot and so forth, so.
Okay.
Can I ask you, it says discounts and adjustments, 22 budget is 49,300. What is that?
That is everything that comes into play between discounts and adjustments that may apply on our accounts payable, but the biggest part of all this is it's our sales and use tax. So that's where this comes in, all along with all of our refunds of the local tax rebate claim. That's where those funds go.
Okay.
And that's why you see a large amount for this year is because we did all that work on trying to go back and recoup that 5 years of overpayment and on top of our other stuff. It's all sales and use tax related.
Okay. Okay.
We did add the credit card processing fee that we discussed the other day. And what we did was run a report for what we've done the first part of this year for our point of sales, for admin, e-com, and looked at, assuming that most of those are all gonna be your assessments, your utility, and your annual renewals. And applied 75% of the revenue here, and 25% reducing bank fees. as people will probably start to use their card a little bit less if that fee is imposed. So next year, I would assume, to John's point, you know, it'd probably be 50-50 next year of where you kind of see that take place. So. Wages are up a little bit. That it is due to adding the new accounting manager position in here. I did go ahead and put it in version 1. That's also moving the CD30 position over to this area, along with raises and so forth. Coming down in here, the cost of land sold, we value each lot on the books at $750 a lot, so it's taking that same calculation and applying it in both places.
Katrina, can I have you go back up to the wages piece?
Yes.
So the overtime wages went up, is that because of some of those other moves that we were talking about?
This is the overtime wages went up because of trying to actually budget for it, and with us being understaffed.
Okay, all right. And then the other one, payroll taxes went up, and that's just because of those, again, moving people around and stuff like that? Okay, all right, tracking. So you're on cost of land sold,
Yes.
before I interrupted you?
And then, so like I said, those are valued at $750 a lot, so it's just playing with the calculation with above. The printed forms, that's all of our annual renewal mailings and the billing that goes out and all that, so that's where that is. Let's see. Computer software, you know, that's because it was realigned. We've got 15 computers slated for replacement. Not much change in any of this. Here's where that 30,000 pretty much came. Let's see. We've got the legal and professional fees. That covers, as you know, the ADP and Gallagher, but it also covers all of our tax returns, our audits, both for financial and the 401k. All of that stuff is in there. Let's see. Telephone, that's just cleaning that up as well. Bank charges, as I said, I reduced it with the 25% from credit card fees. This 50,000 is the electrical system recovery, so trying to wear down the amount that we have sitting on the books for all the infrastructure they put in the beginning. So this is a calculation that takes place with how many new home permits went in, what did we expect, and that difference is this write-off point, so that we can start to try to dwindle that amount down. Those are pretty much in line, and
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to that one. So just
Yeah.
again, the electrical system recovery, what's the bad debt?
well, it's not bad debt. We paid in the beginning to have the infrastructure set up. So running all the lines and stuff like that. And so they put it on the books as an asset, and it's been sitting there. Well, it doesn't depreciate, it doesn't do anything because it's set up as other assets. So the last several years that we have been writing it down based upon what the accounting firm set up with us of how we needed to handle that.
Okay.
And so
Gotcha.
we look at how many actually new homes went in, and we're reducing it by that difference every month, so we can start to actually dwindle that balance down.
Okay.
So it's really kind of a depreciation cost.
It's a
Yeah.
depreciation of our electrical, underground electrical
Yeah.
system that's been put in the ground here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've got 50,000 in there for board expenses,
They're not
board
worth it.
election, board meetings, and honestly, I don't know what else to.
You guys are expensive.
They're not worth it. Need to eliminate elections and draw
So just
straws.
one curiosity question here.
This is a
Housekeeping
20.
It'd be cheaper.
expenses went up by
pistols at 20 paces, at least whoever you get has a steady hand.
Is that just a contract renewal?
Let's see, because we've got,
Same contract?
I was trying to get more in line with what we really are on track for. We do have the contract that's extended. We've got a company that comes in and
Okay.
cleans twice a week.
Okay, so it's just more aligning to what we were.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And then with COVID, we've had an increase of trying to keep hand sanitizer
Sure.
and all that.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
So, the summary tab here, as I said, I haven't finished, I haven't done the verbiage on mine. Everybody else's verbiage is done, just not mine.
What you been doing?
You only sent your email out at 11 something last night, I saw that.
I have two questions.
Yes.
Maybe I missed it, maybe it's none of our business, but the recruiting fee, is that somewhere in there?
This for the general manager you're talking about?
Yes.
That would have been in this year's budget.
It wasn't budgeted, but it will be done this year, so
Right.
it will
It
be,
will be
This year's
done this
budget.
year?
Yes.
Okay.
Got paid for it this year, so.
we already cut the first piece of it yesterday.
The second question I have is maybe immaterial, but someone had asked an interesting question. When I do bill pay, when I pay my assessments and utilities, when I do it, the bank cuts a check and it mails to you. So I do it on the first day of the month. You guys may not cash it till the 17th. Some of it is transit time because of the USPS. Then some may be just the time to process it. In a lot of other companies, they do like the more electronic version of paying it. So if I pay it today, you'll actually get it within 2 or 3 days. Have you all looked at that? Are you aware of that? I don't.
So we've been trying to figure out some of what our options are. We've looked at some different things. It comes back to part of it is a security issue. So what your options are, what you're doing is you're doing the bank bill pay.
Yeah.
Like you said, so they send us a check. Well, we also have draft. We have ACH draft, which will then just take that amount directly out of your checking account. So then there is no latency there.
That's what mine does.
Yeah, I don't do that.
So
But I don't mind if the bank does it really quickly. But anyway, it's just my personal preference.
But some of our limitations are, like, for example, if you want in draft, but you're wanting to use a credit card, we're not set up to use a credit card for that payment. It has to be your checking account due to the security stuff and the layers and that where Totally is servicing part of it and storing that information. Now, once we go to the new platform that they're supposed to have rolled out, hopefully sometime soon, should have been 6 months ago, you will have the availability to do the credit card stuff and all of that. As far as us being able to receive it directly, we've worked with Regions and trying to see what we could do. And they did the analysis for us, because it would save us time in-house as well, because we wouldn't have to be manually processing that check. But the cost was, the benefit did not outweigh the cost for us to be able to implement that service.
It's not
right now.
like the extra 2 weeks that you might get my money, you're not gonna make enough interest to cover the cost of that type of
Yes.
transaction.
And I don't remember exactly how much it was. I'd have to go back and look, because it was I want to say towards the end of last year that I was trying to check into it. But it would probably run us, I think they said it was somewhere between $1,500 and $2,500 a month. Like, it was not cheap. So that's, that and along with us doing the changeover with Totally and all that, we just didn't pursue it at that point.
Also keep in mind, USPS is changing up some delivery stuff. So first-class mail is 2 to 3 days longer now, or will be. So that check that y'all cashed them on the 17th. Might be maybe the 14th, but maybe the 18th before y'all actually get it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully with some of the advances that we can get in some other areas, we'll be able to justify maybe making this change.
Yeah.
But,
I'm glad you asked that because I hadn't gotten around to it yet. The larger companies do that, so when we open our bill pay at our bank, I forget some of the company names, but it's as if they already have the bill.
Yeah, there's the e-bill.
There's
is what they
e-bill,
call it.
Yeah.
there's e-bill, and then there's
So it's
electronic
not-
bill pay.
It's not exactly computer to computer. It requires a bank to do something.
well, it's a service that you're gonna pay for,
Yeah.
so, and I know exactly what you're talking about, because if I go on mine, and I've got a few set up, if I go to pay DirecTV or something, it'll say, okay, do you wanna transmit it today or tomorrow? But when I go to pay my trash bill, it says, okay, select your date, and it's a week and a half out.
Yeah, it's
Right.
paper check and then the
Right.
transit
Yeah.
time, yeah.
Because the city doesn't take it that way, so it's something we would have to pay for, and like I said, the cost just was too much for us to bear at that point in time to justify it. So, any other questions regarding admin? Okay. Just to cover the summary side of it, let me go back to. All right. So the overview, as I said before, it's rolling every dollar we end up making today, or this year, over to next year. So one of the things I do want to stress, and I know you guys get it, but we have this huge $8.5 million in capital. Well, you know that's not historically how much we spend. We've only been able to spend the 4. So I'm saying all this because when we go into building 2023, it's going to go back down to the 4.
Without an assessment increase.
Yes.
You're back right where you are, yeah.
So this is only because the PPP and coming in under budget and all that, so rolling everything forward. All the capital that we've kind of covered. I did not update this line right here. This is the proposed debt service for the sanitation trucks, because those trucks are supposed to come in beginning of the year. So I've left that amount because I don't know exactly what our interest rate's gonna be, because it'll be applicable at that point in time. So I've left it. I think it's a safe amount, because we did already receive one of those pieces of equipment. So even if interest rates went up a little bit, I think this still covers us. I've updated the rest of our debt service. So in the end, what we're looking at is putting $149,000 is what's left over without utilities. So instead of assigning another piece of capital or something to it, because I know, coming back to the fact of we're relying on every dollar to roll over, you at least have a $150,000 cushion.
You got a little leftover change just in case.
Yeah, and so that would go into the capital funds to go along with. The 509 is what would be left for the utilities, to be added to what they already have of this 666,000. And then meeting the Gulf reserves through the surcharge, and now moving that over. I can go through and walk all of this through with you guys again if you want. You guys just kind of tell me what you want me to show you on here.
You got one comment?
Yes.
If you go back to the 21 budget, the excess, the number that I'm looking at, well, not right now, but from the 21 budget, the net excess was about $1 million higher than that. And it was all, the difference was in operational expenses. So I just don't know why there's a mismatch between the 21 budget and what's on this piece of paper.
Oh, you mean right here?
No, go way up to the top. Keep going up, okay.
Oh,
Whoops, too far.
that's the top.
No, not all the way to the top.
You didn't mean it all the way.
Yeah, I didn't
Go
mean
down
all the
like
way up.
page 2.
Right there.
This number. That was 4.6 million. And the difference was operational expenses, this number was lower by $1 million. I just don't know why there would be a difference.
Because those are all flowing in
Yeah.
from our sheets.
Sounds like a after-the-fact action to just cross-check.
Yeah, let me go back and double check it.
Yeah, please.
I had one question that's not exactly here, and then I had one we might want to take a look at. I remember last week when we were talking, one of the things that we know it's in there somewhere, but we couldn't find it, was the budget line for view clearance and roadside tree removal and view clearance, I think was what it was called. I think it had gotten moved to common property and forestry, and there was a little confusion. It looked like it got pulled out of one and didn't get dropped back into the other one.
They were saying there was an additional amount in there. He'd already had several things identified. Here, I can pull it up. So I did go in version 2, and I've added additional amounts
Okay.
specifically for that. Let me see, I don't update. Yeah, so here's their comments for Landon Street, which they've already got a $30,000 supplemental mowing contract in there. Let me make that bigger.
No, I can see it, I'm just trying to, wasn't 100% sure that supplemental mowing was the,
And I don't know that it was, so that's why I said I've added another $30,000 separately for
Okay.
road clearance in version 2.
okay. That'd be about 12 miles of road, so that's good. Yeah, according to Ron, it's still about $2,500 a mile, so, okay.
Is that something you guys would want added to version 1 and something else removed?
It's one of those items that we identified as a need. So it's probably some amount in version 1. Whether 30,000 is the right number or not, I don't have a feel for it. I know historically, that's typically been done kind of on an ad hoc basis, only, based on what the crews had time to do. And they wanted more dollars than that in order to get on a regular schedule, but, we are budget limited in '22, so.
Well, and I think part of it is you're moving a staff over that's gonna be totally dedicated to doing this, and the 30,000 is to hire the contractor to come in and do it too.
Yeah.
So I think I assume they would still be able to achieve some level of cleanup with the staff.
Yeah, I won't disagree with your logic, I'm just not sure exactly what their plan is.
So I'll go back and confirm and make them pick something to take off.
Okay, thank you. The other thing I saw, because I went through the roll-up summary, and thank you so much for that. The one I saw that kind of sticks out at me was golf. Saw the compensation change, which is terrific, because that was a much bigger number the last time around. The one that surprises me is the increase in operating expenses. I know there was, I know a not insignificant portion of that was related to fertilizers and things needed to maintain the golf courses. And maybe it got lost in all the other numbers before.
Well, here,
Also golf carts, the golf lease, the cart leases.
300.
They run through operating income. I mean, we make money when we sell,
Well,
Due to cart sales.
yes, cart sales.
367,500 of that $740,000 is due to the cart sales because it's an offset to expense. In the past, they were picking it up in revenue, but truly, if it is an asset disposal, it's your gain or loss on sale of asset, which should be an account down in your expense, and it can either be a contra account or it's not, depending on how you fared.
Okay.
So that is a big part of.
Yeah, that was the shift I saw from what we looked at last week to current. That explains it.
And then if you look at over here with golf, there's a summary for all of it, which is what feeds into the other one that you were looking at. But there's also this breakdown that shows you between the golf operations and the golf maintenance. But I don't have the percentages built in on that one to.
Well, the only one that looked odd was the operating expense, and that was, that $367,000 is.
Yes. And the rest of it, like you said, but a good portion of it anyways, not the rest of it, but a good portion is our fertilizers and chemicals and so forth, trying to ramp that back up.
Not only are you trying to ramp it back up, but you're also looking probably at a 20% increase next year in
Yeah.
fertilizer.
Prices, yeah.
So while we're on golf, before you jump off it, so for equipment purchases, are those all lined out in there?
Yes, so, let me just pull it back up. So capital for 2022 is almost 900,000, it's 895. And what the 21 budget was is 300,000.
Okay.
So we're trying to pick up all the pieces they had on their 7-year O&M.
But they were all high priority, weren't they? You go.
There was all but one or two, and I think it was a fact that it was just miscoded on one, and then the other one was the repair that is actually in.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think there's one piece of equipment they were hoping to limp along for another year, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, it curled up and died on them. Okay. That was the only other question I had in the summary area.
Okay. I can go ahead and show you guys version 2, but I don't have it complete yet. But as we mentioned last week, your increases, it's the $500,000 additional for the street preservation program, the extra $100,000 for, let me just quit talking out of my mouth. Or outside of my mouth, let me just pull it up.
And version 2 is essentially the budget, assuming a successful vote. Is that correct?
Correct. And okay. I color coded them here. There we go. So increasing the $500,000 for the street preservation program, $200,000 for the culvert replacements, the new truck and utilities for the construction crew that they'd be adding, because we do have the new head count in this. There are 17 new positions, I believe. that they've asked for across, and a lot of it's public utilities, public works, to add the new crews in order to do all this.
Yeah, I saw the net staffing reduction of 27. Looked like picked up 20 in various departments, lost 47 out of food and beverage, and
But the other, there was something else I thought. So that was the 600, that's 200, that's the truck. And then we've also added 500,000 for the bunker replacements at Granada. That's what's way down here. To come in with that. I have not made any other changes as of yet, but that's going to use almost all of what the assessment increase would be. I only have a little bit left to wiggle.
Okay, so questions I have are like water and sewer line replacements.
So those, we did not increase with the assessment increase. However, if you go and look at the utilities, let me pull that one up because I think that would help you. They are gonna see a huge increase in year over year already. So they're going from spending roughly $2 million to $4 million in capital.
Yeah, but, so then, okay, so where's the $2 million, right? So that's the question.
Well, they're done paying the POA back of the $500,000
No,
apiece.
I understand that. but-
Okay.
Okay, so the 2 million increase is buying us what?
Well, you get $500,000 in the street preservation program. You had, you also had the
That's
guardrails.
utilities.
I'm talking about in public utilities, they have work to do too.
I did not assign any of the assessment revenue increase to utilities.
But in public utilities, they're going from capital of 2 million to capital of 4 million. What is the additional 2 million in capital buy?
I gotcha. Sorry, I did not understand your
That's
question.
fine.
So if you come back over here, those didn't have any capital. This is the water department. For 21, all they had was $100,000. Right now, we're looking at 350,000. 250 of it is the sodium chloride converter that needs to take place. This is replacing the pumps and motors for the SCADA controls, which replacing one of the filters that they have, and I think they've said they have 3 that they're gonna need to do over time. And then a replacement of a vehicle. Then in PU 25, which is water line maintenance, this year they had 300,000 budgeted, they get 660 for next year. That is $100,000 to do the connection for Balboa Gate with the North Garland County Water District. That's the meter replacements that have to take place anyways of 100,000. An additional 70,000 to replace a main water line. They haven't picked one yet. They have a list of ones, so they're gonna identify one. That's only gonna cover pretty much one, from my understanding.
yeah. But I think it's a fairly long one. It's like 1.5 miles or 2 miles
Yeah.
or something like that, yeah.
I thought I heard Jason say he had everything he needed to make that connection at Balboa.
He did. He had all the material and everything else. What this is for them to actually install and connect the pipes, because it is such a large
The dig-
job, and
the
to do
dig-
it in-house with the liability risks that are there. It's just bigger than what they're used to doing,
Okay.
so. That just goes in line with the revenue side. It's just the new services.
That's basically the water main and the isolation valves are most of the,
Yeah. And then, replacing a backhoe that they need, and then some of the water extensions. But your biggest part is putting in that connection, replacing the water main that hasn't taken place, and those adding up. Then for PU 30, they only had 95,000 for 21. They have $1 million.
That's the clarifiers, that's the big thing.
So that's the truck, your SCADA improvement, the roof over their, the control panel, which that's not really what you guys are looking for, but that's what's in here as well, so just go down the line. I know you're asking about the big items.
Yep.
This is the pump replacement for the collections, and then new clarifiers, which is supposed to help with the overflow. Engineering fees are what both of those are. Then in PU 35, they went from 232,000 to 582,000. Adding a backhoe, replacing a backhoe there as well. Same with, that's just your new water line stuff. This is to also to help with the flowing that they're dealing with for the I&I. And then extensions, and then a new truck
Yep.
for the new crew. PU 40. Let's see. You had 1.3 almost, and now you got 1.45, so not as big of a difference there. Your biggest drivers are the new units, which is just a wash. But doing some of the lift station increases still. That's what a lot of these are.
Plus, it looked like they moved a bunch of stuff from what used to be capital into operating. I mean, they have a bunch of notes like moved to 7533.
Yes, so they had put the replacement parts in
Right.
here. And so what they're really capitalizing is the new and not just the fixes,
Right.
so that's what was reclassed.
Right.
PU 50 is bond, so there's nothing there. PU 60 is just a breakout of PU 30, trying to keep better tracking, and there's not any capital there. So does that help answer where that extra $2 million went?
Yeah.
I mean, your clarifiers, the chlorine deal, some of the equipment that they needed replaced, along with the water line replacement.
I think about 4 or 5 major parts that are driving a big chunk of that cost. And I'll use the phrase "the story," not intended to be in a negative sense, but the clarifiers, apparently they are a limiting factor to how much water can be processed at the treatment facility. So upgrading the clarifiers increases the amount of water that can be processed, which means less water diverts into the sludge pond.
Well, my understanding was, to a great degree, that clarifier was going to eventually, and not in the too far distant future, replace an old one that was already there. So it wasn't clear to me that it was a pure expansion, maybe a temporary expansion.
I think the act of changing the clarifier
Yeah,
increases
true.
the volume it can process.
It should.
Exactly how much,
But
I
if
wasn't
at the
clear.
end of the day, they take down the old one, then
yeah.
you're just back to square one, plus the fact that it's newer should be able to
Well,
do a better job.
yeah.
So,
Where'd it go?
I guess at some point, we need to have Jason come talk to us, not now, not part of the budget, but we need to understand the plan for water line and sewer line replacement.
The problem I have with water and sewer, particularly when you're talking about the main buildings, it's so technical that I can't even conceive it. I think I can imagine a water line, a pipe, and delivery, but, I can't conceive of what those people do 24/7 just to get the water to my tap and to my toilet so when I flush it, you know, something actually happens.
And I totally get all the plant stuff that you
Yeah.
gotta keep up and running, and there's plenty of maintenance and stuff that has to happen there. That's understandable.
Yeah,
But when people have water leaks and sewer leaks all the time,
right,
and you don't have in the budget a plan to go fix the water lines and the sewer lines
right.
visible, they're not gonna be really excited about your plant fixing and part. They're gonna be wondering, when are you gonna come around and fix my water line that you've had to come and put patches on 10 times this year?
I'm sure
And that's
we
the
keep-
thing that I think Jason needs to spell out for us, or is, okay, spell out, over the next X number of years, how you're gonna get after going and replacing all these lines.
Yeah, we got some not insignificant number of miles of water line and sewer line that's been in the ground for
50 years.
30 to 45 years, 30 to 48 years, whatever. It's been, and those are probably the most problematic lines out there. So, but yeah, if there's 100 miles of that line in water and 100 miles of that line in sewer, it'd sure be nice to know what the plan is for refreshing those lines.
Because they have in the OMT, they have that line in there. I'm just trying to match it up to this line here.
Okay.
One other comment in there is, if you want to stop overflowing at the plant, this is where we start. And I think some of these things are, and I'm speaking out of turn because I'm not in that position, okay?
But it's a two-part problem. You
It-
gotta fix
it
the
is.
plant, but you also have to fix the delivery system. And
And they're
when I
looking-
look at that, that's mostly plant, not much delivery. So we Jason's gotta come explain the rest of how that's all gonna flow out. And I'm sure there's a sequence that has to be done.
Well, my understanding with some of this is, because the argument has been brought up of where do you decide to put all your apples, And from my understanding, what he always falls back on is, it comes back to the compliance and regulation issues,
Which is why I understand how they're doing the plant, because that's where DEQ and those guys are gonna write them up and say, you gotta fix this. Got that? But if we're gonna get more money, assuming we get an assessment increase, then there's a balance there that has to be struck for the community.
So from here, are you saying don't do the clarifiers, or what?
No,
are you
I
saying?
didn't say any of that. I didn't say that. I said at some point we have to have Jason come in and explain the rest of the rollout. So we stay aligned with them. Can I ask you on your roll-up a couple questions? And then you can correct me if if I'm speaking out of turn. So in the tabs down below, so under public safety tab, in the comments down below, these are the official comments that will get published with the budget?
This is their comments, I've not read through them yet.
Okay, so do you want me to comment on them?
Go ahead and we'll figure out what we need to fix, because I hadn't read through them yet.
Right. So in public safety, it just caught my eye when I read line 37, which says, fire department has not added any capital in the year 2022, but we're gonna buy a new engine pumper that's 20 years old.
Was added to the fleet budget, but it's in there, yes, verbiage.
Doesn't it go into public safety when in execution year?
Yes,
So anyway,
it's
it
in his.
it doesn't read right. It says you're not gonna do it, but then you're gonna do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Confusing.
No, good catch.
Don't confuse the masses out there. The next tab over under Public Works.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting here, there's no wording here about the streets preservation program and the culvert repair program and that kind of stuff. And given how much attention and effort we put into trying to give them a street preservation program and culvert repair program and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
If they're not gonna say something in the budget, then I don't understand.
And it needs to have some numbers hung on it too.
Yeah.
You know, you got so many dollars in street preservation, what does that equate to? If you got so many dollars in culverts, what does that
Correct.
equate to?
I mean, this is what people, the general populace is gonna read, and this is how you communicate that I heard what you said, and here's what I'm doing, and all that kind of stuff, and you just put the words that are in there. I'm just talking about how do you bolster this thing up before we get it finally signed off. I would add stuff in there,
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
okay?
And I think maybe the staffing section up there needs to be looked at just a little bit, because I think I understand it. It says we shed 3 sanitation workers, we added a mechanic's apprentice, I remember that. We must have added 2 new positions in 2021, but it's kind of inferred that not necessarily in there.
Yeah.
Because staffing levels didn't change at the end of the day, but we rearranged some of the people, rearranged some of the job functions.
Yeah, I think it's the wording.
Yeah.
And if you go over to public utilities, again, same thing that Larry was talking about, the staffing comment there is a little confusing on what exactly you're doing. Because then when you read down below, it says main goals and objectives for 22.
Don't change the staff, I think it said, or something like that, yeah.
Where do you? So he's saying one crew, 2 line maintenance, and 1 electrician.
Looks like we added 1 in 21, and we added 3 new ones in 22, so. So 1 2-man crew to line maintenance, adding 1 electrician, okay.
Does that math work?
Well, there was an ad in 21, I'm not quite sure who, the 3 in 22, that takes care of them. The one that was added in 21, I don't remember what that position was.
Well, and they probably didn't. It's the fact they had stuff budgeted, and I go to pull the report now, and it doesn't match. So obviously, you've added 1 in 21.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I ran into some of this. So I've identified what I could, and if I couldn't do it,
Yeah.
you're still left with a little bit of a question.
Yeah, got it.
But yes, it was 1 in 21, and then the 3, which is,
Yeah, they've got
I think, how his line reads.
I think that's line 39, looks like the 22 additions.
Mhm.
Correct. I think so.
Two-man line maintenance crew and a lift station maintenance
Yeah.
dude.
I was just trying to give you guys, if you saw 3 and you saw a difference of 4, you're gonna say, what do you mean?
Mhm. Yep.
And then my only other comment on this one is under capital priorities, where we just list out kind of basically all the things that we just looked at just a second ago on the public utilities detailed tab there.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact when we just list a bunch of technical terms and there's no explanation, because remember, the lay audience won't understand that. So maybe some words added there to make it understandable. And then, again, I don't see anything about water and sewer lines in there, so there is some, so I would say it. On the golf tab, and this is, and I wanted to bring this up just because I wanted to determine if we were using the right language here. On the golf tab, at the top there, we say golf reserves allocation.
Well, it's listed on all of our stuff as a golf reserve, but it's not.
But it's not a reserve, and we
not a
just did a
reserve.
reserve policy, and it's a surcharge, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just seems to me, we're adding confusion to ourselves, and we're just adding to the confusion to the community on all of that. Why don't we call it what it is? And that way everybody can track it the same, and everybody looks for the golf surcharge and the value that's in there. And if we're gonna expend it, we're gonna say that this was that way. Otherwise, I think we're just,
And I'll clean that up across the board, because like I said, I think they've called it reserved some the time of inception.
Mhm.
So it's in a lot of places, so I'll clean it up
Okay.
everywhere.
And then, two other questions on golf at the bottom there. Under the course maintenance plan, it says the Balboa continue car path rehab.
Cart.
Is that, John Paul, is that part of the money that comes out of the surcharge?
Yeah.
I'd probably say that. It'd be my advice so that people know that where the money's getting spent and why, 'cause that's what we said we were gonna do. And then,
There.
there's one other on here that I read that was like,
While you're looking for it, scroll up just a little bit to about, I think it's like row 22, maybe it's 32, sorry. Yeah, 22.
Lower.
We didn't
What?
lower the golf subsidy. It went up a good bit.
Yeah.
delete
Where,
that one.
that just needs to come out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one.
Delete.
Yeah, like I said, I apologize, guys, but I hadn't read through
No.
their comments yet. I took it and I pasted it and,
You had plenty more than enough to do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We're just,
well, I will go through and make sure that there's not anything else that needs to be cleaned up. So if you guys see anything,
We got one more on recreation, or one more couple comments on recreation's comments at the bottom. Line 40. You know, we talked in the budget about that new trail. We
I
said
took
no
that
new
out.
trails. Okay.
this doesn't
And
say
then
new.
line 42 talks about the pickleball parking expansion. I think we gave that the big thumbs down.
It died.
Good idea for new, anything.
yeah.
Question, do you guys want that in version 2? Or are you gonna X-nay it?
I don't think it goes in version 2 either. You're just asking for a problem if you do. You just,
Okay.
Or just
give
stood up-
give
or
them a
just stood up
baseball bat to
yesterday
hit
and
you in the
said
head with. I
nothing
mean,
new.
why would you do that? Just, we can live with it the other way around.
Yeah, board just stood up yesterday.
Go park
and
over
said-
at DeSoto Club, there's plenty of parking over there, and it's not a long walk, and there's even a trail.
You're a pickleball player, you're in shape.
Right.
I can attest to that.
And then there was two others on there, woodland parking lot, landscape improvement, we kinda went, we should probably look at that one. And then the roof over the chemical house, I think you
Yeah,
said,
I took that one off for now.
we think we said that one should be maybe reevaluated. Those were other ones that I just saw quickly reading through it last night.
Now, I didn't change anything with the parking lot repair out here. It's still split over a 2-year.
Yeah, that's,
Is,
this was both the parking lot repair and some landscaping improvements,
Yeah.
I think.
is that something that you guys are feeling strongly needs to come off completely, or I didn't get? I think it was $7,500 this year and then, and next year, because they had 50.
For what are we talking about?
For the parking lot and the landscaping at this building.
Seemed like the landscape
This
was
building?
7,500
It was 7,500 for the
landscaping.
for the landscaping.
Parking lot was something
He
else.
probably spent about 2,500 anyway with new mulch. He wants to convert the mulch to gravel, to where it would last for years rather than every year.
Yeah.
He's talking about probably $5,000 difference.
But that's what that line item was.
Yeah,
That's what I said,
I
didn't-
can go either way on that one, I mean,
Kind of depends on which way you cock your head. You can call it, you can call it refurbishment, you can call it new.
Well, exactly.
You saw what they did to the memorial out here.
Yeah, that's what they ought to do to the rest of the parking lot. I don't disagree with it. I just think if we're gonna say it, we need to say it, what we're gonna do, and be careful about how we say it.
I mean, is the issue the dollars or the issue how you're, it's a marketing issue?
I think it's, I think it's a lot how you say it, because we do wanna maintain
Say mulch,
around our facilities and stuff
mulch
like
and
that.
damaged plant replacements.
But, you know, I think there's a difference between saying parking lot and landscaping
Right.
improvements.
Improvements.
And saying replacing the mulch that needs to be replaced every year with gravel that lasts 20 years.
Right.
That's a lot. Then you're explaining to people what this money's going to and why we're not just throwing it down the toilet.
What he said.
How do you write that in 5 words?
Yeah.
Take
Well-
that down to 5 words.
Well, and the real, the
You gotta put
real,
enough words that someone who hasn't sat through all these meetings can look at it and know what we're talking
I
about.
think
Right.
people are better
But not
with,
so many words that they glaze over and can't read it.
I think people are better with replacing something, which implies that it was damaged,
But just
than
replace mulch
saying
with rock.
improvement or something like
Yeah.
that. Which makes it sound like you're
Landscaping,
upgrading. We're really
replace
not.
mulch with rock.
Yeah.
You guys good with that?
There you go.
Yes.
there you go.
Yeah,
Winner, chicken dinner.
that's what he said, or she said.
There we go. Okay. Those were the only ones I just caught real quick per look at it.
I got all kinds of revenue stuff there. I do have several, I have these 3 sheets that I have not completed yet, so as soon as I get those, I'll send them over. It's going through and updating and pulling the numbers and
I
stuff.
have a comment about that sheet,
Which sheet?
the one that we're looking at, the
Okay.
consolidated overview. It basically explains what we're kind of doing with our cash position. I mean, that's the way I look at it. We don't actually have a cash projection to the 12/31 that says, here's where we are, here's the end of year cash position, and how the different funds are gonna be increased essentially. I don't know, it just seems, I think it'd be helpful to me anyway, to say, we will end the year with X dollars in this capital fund and that capital fund, operating funds will be X dollars. I don't have an estimate for that.
Well,
Because
that's
ultimately, if you don't have the cash, you can't do that, any of these things.
correct.
And that's the way I'm thinking of it.
Well, and that's where I have, like I said, I haven't updated this one, but it's the same information that's on this one.
Okay.
So when you look right here,
Mm-hmm.
you can see, okay, we've carried over the utility excess, blah, 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 how we ended 2021 matching our reports. So then it comes in and you've got what is left over from the prior years for the utility, how it's being taken out here and carried over.
Right.
This is the general capital, it's taken out and carried over. So that's why I try to kind of highlight them to see
color-coded.
where it comes in and where it goes. And where, so then at the end, I don't have this much left, now I have
Right,
this.
and those are components as opposed to, at the end of the year, if you do all this, how much operating funds will we have? And how much will be in the operating, the two capital funds? They're not, these are movements as opposed to balances.
Well, on the reserve plan has all of your reserve accounts and what's
Well, yeah.
what's there, along
Right.
with the new accounts of the capital, with those pieces, to get an expected year-end balance. So the only piece that would be missing is your cash operating.
Okay.
So I think what Tom is asking, is do you prepare a balance sheet budget?
No.
No.
I pull in just our debts and all of that stuff. They don't do, it's not one across the board. So it doesn't come in and say, okay, here's your change in receivables, here's your change in the liabilities, other than your current debt and the interest. It doesn't come through and do a complete cash flow projection.
Would a cash flow projection help, just so you could see your ebbs and flows of cash each month?
Well, I do that on a monthly basis. For here,
For
I guess
actuals.
that's where I'm kind of coming back down to, I pulled every dollar in, I spent it all, your balance is exactly what you started with beforehand.
I guess the
But,
question I'd ask is help who? Sounds like she already does it,
Yeah.
to keep track of where her cash flow is. Would it be something that the average villager looking at the financial report would divine something new and insightful?
Maybe not.
I'm gonna make a comment, and I don't mean it to come off in any rude way, so please don't take it that way. Sometimes it's very hard to put things into an easily understandable narrative.
Sure.
And I'm not defending anybody, and I'm not speaking to anything, but I understand it to a degree, not to the degree that it's been, but to a degree of the more little stuff you provide out there, all the little weeds, you get lost in the weeds and you're no longer able to see the big picture. So sometimes putting out like all of this information out there for them to see how you guys are seeing on a line item by line item level, that's too much for an everyday person a lot of times. And so if we can keep things high level and not try to give them, here's every letter of the alphabet plus it in Greek and so forth and so on. Am I making any sense? I think sometimes we can step
Yes,
on our own
absolutely.
toes sometimes.
I think what I was thinking was more probably for us, but
Oh,
I agree, because you already get too many questions out there for just these summary levels. If you start getting down into more details, that's just gonna exponentially grow the number of questions and criticisms and all that kind of stuff.
and that's what I'm saying, I think we do need
Misinterpretation.
we do need to be able to provide a little bit more information than what has been in there in the past. I definitely agree there, you know, and that's why I said I would like to eventually be able to say, okay, here's your revenue, here's your constant stuff, here's your expenses, grouped in payroll, grouped in operating, you know, things like that, so that you do get a better understanding. And I think maybe that's kind of coming back to like trying to understand the allocations pieces. Well, if you're keeping it at a high level, they're not trying to track it went from line 347 to this over here, so it comes back to you're giving them a lot more information and they'll get lost in it.
The allocation pieces, I was thinking was just more for us, nothing else.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you made the comment Monday, Jeff, that the villagers are gonna have trouble ticking and tying. And that's,
That goes to a broader just, okay, if you're trying to dumb it down to the villagers wanna know, you know, big ticket things. They wanna know the streets are getting repaired, the culverts are getting fixed, the fleet is getting fixed. But if they have to go to every department to figure out what fleet vehicles got replaced, they're not gonna do that. They're just gonna complain that, hey, we're not doing that. So how do we as a group figure out how to roll those things up and make them very visible? Because that's what we said, that's what we need to focus on. Get them focused on those things. Rest of the organization will just keep running its course. But if we bounce them around, we just need to know how, in the end, we'll roll them up and give them that visibility without them saying, well, go look here, here, and here, and you see it. No, that's exactly what we don't want to do.
So isn't that roll-up really like, if we kind of go back to where we started the meeting, you had an overview page that rolled everything up, right? And it had revenue and expenses and profit or loss by department to a grand total, and then it had the lines for the capital expenditures. and you've got version 1, which is without the assessment increase. You got version 2, which would include the additional projects, all on that one page with the verbiage underneath that describes, here's what the additional capital improvements would be. And they would track with the Revenue Task Force 7-year thing, you know.
And the policy, really.
Yeah,
That's what I'm trying to do, is at some point it's gotta
Right,
track to
right.
the policy.
You connect,
Because that's what
connect all
everybody's
that-
gonna be
you connect
pointing
all
at
that
those.
together, but that's all on just one page. I mean,
Yep.
and in my view, if you have a discussion of that one page and a discussion of those projects in 2 pieces of paper, somebody can get a pretty good idea as to where we are, where we're going, and what the money's gonna go for.
Yep. And I think that's what, in reality, for us trying to help the board, but also help you guys, just to make sure it's clear to the community that that's what's happening, then that's gotta be the ultimate goal. Now, that's not the budget discussion, that's what's next, you know? What do we gotta prepare for come post-vote to be able to
Well,
put out there?
vote or no vote, between now and middle of February, which is about when the January financials will come out, we'll have to figure out how
Yeah,
to shape
how to shape that.
material.
Speaking of that, is this the final version that you showed us yesterday?
Jeff and I are still working out how to set the initial budget lines in there. So there'll be one more iteration that'll show
Target
up.
minimums.
But any feedback you have about that, I'll be more than happy to take. Because I know we're on the clock for that one, because you guys want to vote on those policies in the near term. So.
Yeah, it's Wednesday,
Okay. Yeah.
and then the ballots go out the following Monday.
Okay. Yeah, that'll probably be a tomorrow problem in my world. Trying to finalize that. So I think, given where we are at this point in the day, we might want to go ahead and come back on Monday and have a conversation about how we want to shape the finance and planning inputs for the budget review next week. I would encourage anybody who has any strong thoughts, one way or the other, to please push them my way, and we can kind of accumulate those and put them out. And I would envision it to be a short presentation, probably no more than 5 or 10 minutes, a couple, 3 slides, summarizing our position on the budget review. But I could be influenced by alternative ideas, but that's kind of where my head is right now.
So Larry, my only input would be is, okay, tracking money sounds fine to me. I would think if everybody would just send you, I guess to reiterate what you're saying, if we all send you, hey, here are things we think we ought to try and say, then we at least have a list we can iterate on email, and then on Monday we're lining out or wordsmithing.
Yep.
Whatever you're gonna put together.
I agree. That's kind of where I'd like to go with it. And I mean, I think it's, positive, negative, opportunity for improvement. I mean, I think overall this has been a very positive experience. Yeah. I mean, there are things that the collective we will have to watch going forward, and it's the, some of the mapping of the line items in the budget and what we're doing in terms of expenditures against, the items that were identified as high priority items. I think one of the big things that we're gonna have to work on organizationally is making sure that we actually apply the budget that we're being given and get stuff done. I mean, we've got quite a few dollars carried over, and the trend doesn't seem to be abating, so it's one of those things that we're gonna have to figure out. We have to focus on those things. But you know, I think overall, major kudos to Karina and the staff for, adhering to the spirit of the O and M tables and using that data as a source and being able to make this a comparatively painless review, given the volume of material that we had to go through. So I think it was good stuff. If anything anybody has, like I said, positive, negative, opportunities for improvement, things we need to keep an eye on going forward, whatever it might be, I'm open to any and all suggestions folks might have.
I got one question, and it's really for Karina. So we briefly talked about version 2.
I'm gonna wrap it up and send it out in the next day or so, along with this being completed. I'm gonna send you both versions, and I'll identify in the email exactly what was different. So when you go to look at the budget, you'll be able to just pick it up. Like I said, I've already highlighted in that lime green and
Beautiful.
all that, so.
Beautiful.
Okay, that was my question, because that way we can maybe provide you more educated inputs before Monday.
With
be here
respect to
Monday.
our comments,
I won't be here Monday.
Thanks, Phil.
I guess it's easy to slide into all the things we could have, should have done, and all the things we plan on doing, and all the stuff that's, we want to do in 2022. I think in terms of the presentations to the board, we have to try to focus on the budget. That's what I'm thinking anyway. Because if you're talking 5 or 10 minutes and 3 slides, we can't talk about, big process improvements and stuff like that. We just have to say, budget, love it or hate it, what's wrong, what's right, stuff like that. And really keep focused on it.
Yep, I agree. Okay. With that, motion to adjourn, or does anybody have any closing comments before we put that out there on the table? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay.
All in favor?
All right.